Please, can I ask you to switch your mobile phones to silence? We have received apologies for absence from councillors Atwood, Brooke, Hannaway, Jeffrey, Joy, Leroyd, Oliver, Powley, Ryder, Brent, Smith, Simon and Suthers. Can I ask if there are any other apologies?
Lynn Rain, Bill Suthers, Rob Clark and Jade Laven.
Mr. Mayor, did you mention? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, he said.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, also, on because we don't know where he is at the moment, but we know his wife's ill. But
I don't know where
Thompson,
he is. He's at a funeral.
Ah, right, okay. Well, apologies for Councillor Thompson. Thank you.
Can I ask if there are any declarations of interests? Could members complete the green form that is being circulated around the meeting? And can we move on to item 3? We need to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of June 2025. If there are no inaccuracies in the meeting, anyone's bringing forward, could I ask for a proposer and seconder for the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of June 2025? Thank you. Second, thank you. So, thank you very much. We will move on to, and can I ask members to note the attendance matrix from the last meeting? We'll move on to item 5, announcements from the Mayor, the Leader of the Council and the Cabinet members. Could indicate the Mayor will be speaking? Could I have any announcements, Mr. Yes, Mr. Mayor?
I mentioned last time we met about the Armed Forces Day, which paid tribute to all the servicemen and women, past and present. I'm pleased to say it was a huge success, with crowds turning out to watch the moving ceremonies and to enjoy the entertainment provided by the organisers. It was yet another example of the respect our residents have for those who served our country with honour. It's great to see the work progressing, building the new Eston Pool and preparing Eston Precinct for demolition. The projects will greatly improve facilities on offer for residents living nearby, and I look forward to seeing them develop further and eventually opening for the public, which is, I know, something we all want. I would like to send huge congratulations to all those involved in Churchview's Children's Home in Kirkleatham, my own ward. Ofsted inspectors praised the leadership of the home as outstanding and rated it good overall. Staff at the home provide support and care for our children with social and emotional and mental health difficulties, and it's clear they're doing a fantastic job in providing them with the best possible start in life. Ofsted inspections are extremely demanding for staff involved in the service, so it's usually heartening to hear the praise coming out of that visit to Churchview. My thanks goes to all the staff for providing such a great service for vulnerable children and young people. It's been great to see the difference our council is making to sporting groups which have received grants to improve their offers to residents. Among them is Redcar Rugby Club. I'm going to give a special mention to my deputy, who's been instrumental in bringing the UK's first ladies and female dedicated rugby pitch, and this is getting national attention. So well done, Carrie, well done the rugby club, and well done to the girls and all the staff and coaches involved, if you pass that on for me. The interest in women's sport is at the height at the moment, providing facilities for our girls and to pursue their sporting ambitions. It's vital to developing the site, sports women of the future, and it'd be remiss of me not to mention the great result the Lionesses had last week. Redcar Rugby Club is just one of the sporting organisations in our borough making a huge difference. There are many others, and the thing they have in common is people involved in clubs who selflessly give their time, energy and skill to provide the opportunity to play a sport and gain a new and lasting social life. the great ambassadors. Keep our children on pitches, you know, keeping fit and from falling on the wrong side. So, you know, I'm sure we would all thank everybody in our wards for the Spartan clubs. My thanks goes to everyone involved in these fantastic clubs. Among other sporting initiatives in the borough is the council's partnership with Middlesbrough Football Club Foundation to provide a new sports facility in Loftus. And I'd just like to go on record apologising to Tim, Wayne and Linda. I had no idea the ward councils hadn't been invited to that photo op last week, and I apologise. I just didn't know. I asked where you were. The partnership working has meant the financial backing for the project has come from the Premier League, the FA and the Government's Football Foundation. It is an excellent example of how working together can provide facilities that make a real difference for our communities. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. I do have two announcements to make. After the last full council meeting, when there was a disagreement between councillors which badly disrupted the meeting, could I reiterate to all members that there is a standard of behaviour to follow. The question and answer sessions are not to be used as a debating session or in any way to provoke arguments with each other. As chairman of this meeting, I expect all councillors to treat each other with respect and to follow the good standards of behaviour. Thank you. Secondly, on Saturday, the 16th of August, at Redcar Cenotaph, the Redcar British Legion will be holding their service of remembrance to commemorate VJ Day from 10:45 AM onwards. All are welcome to attend. Thank you. Are there any announcements from Cabinet members? Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Are there any announcements from the Managing Director?
Nothing from me, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. There are no questions received from the public, so we will move on to item 8 to consider a report from the Council Committee. We have one report, and that is Councillor Massey will move the report, financial outturn report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to move this report and Councillor Brown will second. So this is, in essence, the financial outturn report for 24-25. Members who've been here a while might recognise the fact that this does not normally come to full council. There's a specific reason why it has come to full council today, and that's because the outturn report, which is usually a cabinet function, has two items within it that change the capital programme of the council. And so because of that, and because there's an additional borrowing requirement, this has come to full council for the approval for those two items. So rather than going through the entire report, which happened at Cabinet and Scrutiny, I'm just going to touch on those two items and what they are for members who maybe didn't attend, for instance, Resources Scrutiny. So the two capital variations that full council is asked to approve are firstly, £250,000 for Saltburn Cliff Lift. So this is potential prudential borrowing loans to try and regenerate and revitalise both the steelworks that exist at the cliff lift, but also the carriages as well. We hope that with this investment we'd have a 40-year life on any of the steel and up to a 10-year life on the carriages. This will stop the ad hoc maintenance that has had to take place on the tramway for the preceding decades, I would broadly say. It is hoped, shall we say, and I'm incredibly confident that the TVCA may step in to fund this. So what we're being asked to do today is effectively a backstop. We need to say that £250,000 of our capital programme could be spent on revitalising and regenerating one of our key assets in the borough, but hopefully the TVCA will meet that cost and we will never need to spend the 250k, but this is the backstop just to ensure that if the TVCA don't say yes, that we can fund this effectively as ourselves. The second request is for an additional £100,000 of borrowing for children in our care accommodation. So members who are minded to look back at our old paperwork will notice that there was £800,000 for this provision in the previous medium-term financial strategy. After due diligence and after contracts have become close to be signed, we've recognised that the actual cost of this might be nearer 900 rather than 800,000. So the question here for council is to approve an extra £100,000 for this. This would, I guarantee, I don't want to speak about the specific children in the specific case, but this would guarantee quite a saving on the council's revenue budget. Although it's quite a large outlay for capital in terms of £900,000, the cost of the children who could go into that premises being in other forms of care could amount to £1.5 million a year. So this is actually an investor save. It's what the council have said for a number of years that we'd like to do to try and control our own properties and to some extent homes in the future, to try and control the market a bit more rather than the largely unregulated capitalist market that we have within children's social care. So I hope members are happy with the succinct, I hope, version of this report. I'm happy to answer questions on the whole report, but the two things you're being asked specifically today are those two additional items of borrowing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Massey. Can I ask for someone to move and second the report? Thank you.
I moved it as well, Chair.
Does anyone wish to speak? Councillor Nightingale.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I've obviously no qualms with the recommendations, but what the outturn for last year does reveal is the continuing serious situation of the council's finances. Does the cabinet member not agree that it is seriously a problem when the Directorate for Children's Services, and I've no qualms either about the fact that it's got to do the job of providing for people in need, but it's overspent by £12.5 million, squeezing out the other directorates, which in these figures shown in paragraph 4.1 are underspent. It shows, does he not agree that this is squeezing and distorting the expenditure of the council? And of course, we can see that the reserves have collapsed, that driving change has only achieved its 88% of this. At the governance meeting, the accounts of the for last year also revealed, and does he not agree that this is also a serious problem, that out of the £132.5 million on current spending, 87% of this was on children and adults social services, and that the funding for the current spending of the council was from the government grant was only 15% of current spending. 50%, or just about 50%, was actually in funding from the council taxpayers. Early in the 20th century, 21st century I should say, it was the funding from council tax for current spending was just about around about 16%. And this is clearly the legacy of the Conservative administration that we had in Whitehall over the years, because of their complete desire to shift the expenditure of the council to be funded by council tax. But doesn't he agree with me that it's time we got in touch with the government, the Labour government, so that we can get a fairer, more sensible and rational funding of services that quite often are national services but administered by the council? I asked a question there. Does he not agree with me on this issue? I'll repeat the question.
Councillor Kerr.
Well, I had some questions, but maybe if I just say what I was going to say anyways. The capital programme, Councillor Massey, thank you for your report, though, as always. The capital programme, there is an underspend in town centres of 6 million, and you do outline the reasons for that. Our town centres cannot hang around for investment on that level, so I would hope that over this year we can catch up and that figure next year would be greatly reduced. My second point was on home to school transport. Now, we put 0.6 million into the budget last year, yet this year you feel we can make a saving of 1 million and next year a further 0.5 million. Now, that seems contradictory to me, and I raised this at the February budget meeting. If that saving is possible, then why hasn't it been saved already? And then just coming back to the what you said about the extra investment in children's placements. Last meeting I asked Councillor Suthers about how we were working in the region to alleviate some of the costs. At the Growth Committee recently, we heard about a property in Skinning Grove, £20 million levelling up investment, £200,000 investment from the council, indicative savings of around £1 million on 5 placements. Now, £1 million is great, and it's exactly the sort of investment we should be making, and yet it's hardly making a dent against that £12 million deficit. So how can we accelerate the pace of change, I suppose is my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
It's already been covered.
Councillor Julie Hart.
I haven't got a question, I've just got some observations to make. And while we should be commending our children's services and the fantastic job that they are doing, I think that the budgets are unrealistic. And I think that we've got to be honest with ourselves in how much money we should be saying honestly up front we are needing every year to fund our children's services. Because to hear meeting after meeting after meeting that we're in a deficit of 10 million, a deficit of 12 million, it means that the budget is not realistic for the times that we're living in to look after our children. So that's my first observation. My second one is, whilst we are investing within our children's services, we must stop spending money on these unrealistic private rents that, again, we are just filling greedy landlords' pockets with stupid rates that are not helping this budget at all. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I declare an interest. Saltburn Cliff Lift. So thank you very much for the efforts that are being made to secure funding from TVCA for this very important piece of work. It is not the only piece of work, of course. We know that Saltburn Pier is looking for 3 million, and I do hope that the efforts that have been made with TVCA will be successful, and that we will be redoubling our efforts to seek what I think is a reasonable expectation that this borough should be receiving for the capital funding from TVCA. I would be interested in knowing, although your focus is really on the capital spend, what the implications are of the National Pay Award in respect of our overhead commitments going forward, in respect of this year's budget and the medium term.
Councillor Martin.
Just regarding the cost of children's services, obviously I was at Regulatory Committee yesterday and there was 3 applications for 3 different children's care homes. One of them was just for 1 child with 2 carers. The other 2 were small fry, maybe for 2, 3, 4 children. But again, I have no qualms whatsoever. Children do need looking after, but how is this cost effective for the council where we've got 1 care home potentially with 1 child with 2 carers?
Councillor Grogan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the report. Just 2 points really. One, obviously, is asset sales included in your working out? Because I know that the paddock has recently been sold, so there's obviously some income coming in from asset sales and other assets that the authority is doing to like level up the books. So maybe we don't have to potentially borrow that 100k or whatever. And also just a quick note that Councillor Nightingale keeps slating the Conservatives, but he forgets that Liberal Democrats were in charge of the Conservatives for the first 5 years of their 14-year tenure, and also complicit and complicit in the administration of the last administration that was running this council to be in the problems it's in now.
Thank you, everybody. I have no other requests to speak. Councillor Mathey, wish to?
Yeah, no, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought this was going to be a quiet one, but I'll do my best. So, Councillor Nightingale, I would agree with the vast majority of what you said in terms of the problems that this council and councils like it have because of the mixture of our funding changing so rapidly over the last decade. You're very correct. I think we spent £138 million as a council last year. 126 million of it went into adults and children's directorates. That shows you kind of the pressure that the council has in those two areas, but also we know that how we fund those areas is from the council tax base, largely speaking, due to the loss of grant. So I know that the government is looking at this. I know that the government, in terms of the spending review and the government in terms of its future plans, is looking to hopefully redress the balance between how some of the grant funding, and I know it's much smaller than it was when I started and you were still around at that time as well, but hopefully areas like Redcar, which need it more, will get a greater proportion of that funding than we currently get, where it's more evenly spread. So I think that would certainly be something to look out for moving forward, but like I said, I would agree with the vast majority of what you said. Councillor Kerr, you referenced a number of things, particularly on the underspend in town centres. I recognise the concern completely. The one thing I would say is that if anyone is minded to look in the appendices for these kinds of reports, what you'll see is that when money isn't spent this year, it is automatically reprofiled into next year, the year we're actually in now. So this is a question, certainly if I was you, I would be coming back next year to check on. And I'm sure you will. So this is why it's crucial that we have the teams in place to ensure delivery of these key projects, particularly when funding can expire. We need to spend the money that we're given from external agencies or government so that we can see the revitalisation of our towns and other areas. In terms of kind of some, I know there's a couple of people who mentioned kind of children's centres and children's placement, so we'll badge some of those comments together between Martin, Hart and Kerr, if that's okay, councillors. In terms of this, the council does need to look towards, and Councillor Suthers is certainly working on this, new options for children's services in terms of how we place students. So although there might be a cost occasionally to purchasing a property or using a property for even one or two I'm going to say customers there, but I mean one or two placements, children in our care placements. What we need to be mindful of is that in the highest possible cost range, if this is a residential placement that's external to the council, we're looking at £6,500 a week for one child. And obviously that adds up to a significant amount. I think that's 300k in a year, thereabouts. So sometimes we have to spend money, such as we're doing today in terms of this £900,000, to hopefully save money. If we can keep children with families or foster carers, that is A, the best thing for the child, but B, also the most cost-effective thing for the council. But the A I said first on purpose because the most important thing for the child trumps any cost particular considerations. Going back one, I know that Councillor Kerr, apologies I missed this, you did mention home to school transport, and I think what we've seen there, I think, is a real positive corporate oversight of that service. That's not to overtly or overly criticise what happened in the service previously, but due to the work that one of our assistant directors, Vicky Smith, has done in that area, we've seen a real strategic, holistic approach across every child, so that every child is treated equally, and so that if you need home to school transport, there's no other option, and the child is of a particular need that requires it, it will be provided. But there are some occasions sometimes where old practices or siblings, etc., have come into play, and that's where we occasionally saw the spend of that go quite high. We also saw the spend occasionally shift immediately towards a taxi, sometimes a single taxi, where in reality, if there was a taxi going on the same route to the same estate, why couldn't it take two childs if that was deemed appropriate by professionals? So that's why we're confident that we can continue not only to balance the books this year in that service, but also actually to begin to save some money in that service. We're not saving it by taking it away from people who need it and people who require it, but we are saving money by this holistic approach across the board. Councillor Grogan mentioned asset sales. I'm going all over the place here, apologies. Councillor Grogan, you mentioned asset sales. It's a really good point. The government does actually allow the council not only to use asset sales for its capital programme, which we've always done. So if we sell something, we don't need to borrow that money as part of our capital programme. But also you'll notice in the report we can now use for certain elements what's called flexible use of capital receipts, which is where we can use those capital receipts for the revenue budget if there's an appropriate cost. If we're investing to save in something and it's a one-off, we can use some of the capital funding. There's very strict conditions, but we can use that for the revenue budget. So it's a really good point, well made, and it's something that we do. And then going to Councillor Thompson, lastly, Councillor Thompson, I know you raised the issue, as you always do, and rightly so, about Saltburn, the jewel in the crown of our borough, as you have often been heard to say. And Councillor Brown was nodding vociferously while you were talking about looking for funding for the pier and this council's efforts to try and get some of that funding for TVCA. So I know that's ongoing in the background. I'm pleased that you welcome the cliff lift and the investment that this council may make, but may not have to if TVCA pay in terms of the cliff lift. You then, I think it was you who mentioned the National Pay Award as well. So for anyone who's looked at this, the National Pay Award is 3.2%. We did actually budget for 3% on this, so we're not far off, but we haven't budgeted quite enough in this year's strategy for what we're going to come on to in the future. This will be reported at Q1. We think the shortfall will be about £300,000, which we'll try and find in year effectively. I think that's about everything. The only thing I'll go back to, just looking at my very quick notes, was Councillor Hart, you did raise the question about children's services and overspends in a plural sense rather than a specific care home sense. And I do understand kind of where you're coming from completely. I think any member of the public would understand it exactly the same. But I use these stats a lot, so apologies if people have heard this before. But at the outset, maybe a year or two ago, when we started seeing some of these problems, the average cost of a placement for the highest cost placement was £250,000. That average cost now is £350,000. At the start of the year, we had in the low 70s of those highest cost placements. At the end of the year, we had in the mid 80s. That effectively adds up to the majority of the overspend. It is very difficult, but when we set the budget last year, set it on the number that we had in care at that point. It's very difficult to predict if it's going to go up by 10 or even come down by 10. But I know that some of the work ongoing is we will always have children in our care and we'll always have a statutory and a moral duty to protect them and look after them. But as I've said earlier, what the council's priorities are now and our thought process is, can we take some of those children from the higher cost placements into the more medium or lower cost placements, which are not only best for the council in terms of finances, but most importantly are best for the child in terms of their development. If we can keep children with families, with kinship carers, with people close to them, that is a much better outcome in the majority of cases than it is to put somebody in a children's home or residential placement. Thank you for the questions. I hope that answered everything. I move the report and those two capital items that we're trying to decide. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Massey. Could I ask members to approve the financial figures within the report, please, with show of hands? Thank you. We'll move on to item 9. This is a report from portfolio holders. We have one report from the Cabinet Member for Highways and Transport. As a reminder, this is a question and answer session. Councillor Quartermain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and can I say it's always a pleasure to follow my colleague, Councillor Massey, university lecturer. So, sorry in advance, but yeah, I'm going to bring you all back down to earth now. Much appreciated, Chris. And that was a fantastic reply, by the way. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to present our this year's update on the Highways and Transport portfolio, a portfolio that delivers not only statutory responsibilities, but services that impact every resident in our borough every single day. From road surfacing and structures to flooding, street lighting and transport strategy, this portfolio is wide-ranging and its importance cannot be overstated. Whether you're walking to the shop, cycling to school, waiting at a bus stop or driving to work, the work of this team is central to daily life in Redcar and Cleveland. Over the past 12 months, we've seen a clear focus on both the day-to-day delivery of services and the long-term planning required to make our network safer, more sustainable, and more resilient. We've made good progress, and I want to walk you through the report, the highlights, the challenges, and what lies ahead. So first, let's talk about the roads, beginning on page 28. We're responsible for 703 kilometres of roads and 792 kilometres of footpaths and cycle lanes, which, to put into perspective, is the distance from here all the way to the Ukraine. So it's no small feat to say in year one of our 6-year resurfacing programme, we have resurfaced almost 10% of our entire network. That's 137,000 square metres of road and footpaths in 2024-25, which is about the same distance as from here to Lake Windermere. We're also proud to have delivered in partnership with a local company, Universal Matter, the world's first graphene-based road surfacing treatment on a public road at Flats Lane Country Park. This is cutting-edge work designed to extend the life of our surfaces and reduce carbon. We hope the benefits bear fruit, as it is said to withstand heavier loads, is more durable and resistant to cracking and water damage, leading to fewer potholes, and is expected to last 2 to 3 times longer than conventional surfacing, which means obviously long-term savings. In May, I had further talks with Andrew, the development manager, who was absolutely thrilled with the positive media, including coverage by Top Gear, and we discussed the possibility of a second trial to generate additional data and to solidify this borough's position as a national leader in adopting innovative, sustainable road technologies. And subsequently, as a result of that conversation, we have now also resurfaced Pennyman Walk in Mask with this material. We continue to trial new materials and methods too, such as Tarmac's carbon capture biogenic asphalt, which could cut emissions by up to 80%. Moving on to structures and safety, we've now completed the first round of inspections on the 352 structures we maintain, including bridges, coverts, and retaining walls. Similar to our 6-year resurfacing programme, work is underway on a balanced 6-year inspection programme supported by the recruitment of a dedicated structures engineer. One key example this year was the closure and planned demolition of the South Bank Station footbridge. Following a structural assessment, it was found unsafe for pedestrian use. A temporary crossing is now being delivered in partnership with Network Rail and the TVCA, while plans for the station's redevelopment progresses. Flash flooding continues to be a challenge across the borough, worsened by climate change. Over the summer, intense rainfall caused significant issues in Loftus and Skinning Grove. In response with our partners, we've delivered flood doors to 22 properties in Loftus, completed repairs to a damaged covert in Skinning Grove, and are now supporting the Environment Agency on further flood alleviation designs, including a new bridge scheme. Meanwhile, we've completed a survey of all 32,000 gullies and are now using that data to build a smarter, targeted cleansing programme that's both more efficient and more responsive. Coastal management, our coastline presents unique challenges. Following a major rockfall at Cowbar in October 2024, we've accelerated plans for short-term stabilisation and a future realignment of the carriageway. We're responsible for nearly 5 kilometres of seawall and 11 slipways. Damage caused by recent storms to the Dundas Street slipway in Redcar is now being addressed, but it highlights the cost and complexity of maintaining assets in sensitive coastal areas. A new beach management plan is in development, and we continue to push for funding and strategic investment to protect our communities. Winter maintenance this winter, our gritting crews completed 323 routes, an increase of 90 over the previous year. We've invested in new gritters and relying on real-time weather stations and forecasting to stay ahead of conditions. The service runs 24/7 from October to May, and I want to thank our gritting team for their continued dedication to keep our roads open and safe in all weather. Safety and road management. Road safety remains a key priority. Safer street schemes have been delivered in 5 neighbourhoods this year, with another 5 planned for next. We've refreshed lining at 136 sites, and crucially, road traffic accidents and serious collisions are continuing to fall. In 2024, total accidents dropped to 112 from 135 in 2022, and serious collisions are down to 29. That's a 31% reduction in 2 years. Strategic transport and bus services. We've worked with the TVCA to support the rollout of major transport schemes under the Levelling Up Fund and the CRSTS CRSTS programs, which turned into the TCRS repackaged now under the new government. Site work is expected to begin in autumn. The borough's bus patronage has slightly increased this year, a positive sign after post-pandemic declines. Our contribution to the concessionary fares scheme remains stable at 2.1 million, and we continue to press TVCA for sustainable long-term support for services like Teesflex and the East Cleveland bus. Parking and enforcement. We've introduced 1 hour free parking in key areas of Redcar and Gisborough to support local businesses. However, parking charges remain a contentious subject, and in my view, historically high in places compared to similar areas. Therefore, I have no intention to raise these in the next round of the fees and charges review. Pavement parking remains an issue. Enforcement powers currently rest with the police, but I've been lobbying nationally through Patrol for local councils to have the same powers as London authorities. In response to persistent issues at Majuba Car Park in Redcar and campervan parking in Saltburn, proposals are in development to help tackle these concerns head on. Public rights of way. We've invested in new bridges, improved over 200 kilometres of paths, and replaced stiles with accessible gates. A new asset database is helping us better track and maintain our rights of way, which play a vital role in recreation, active travel, and mental well-being. Moving on to fleet services and depots. Fleet services continues to modernise our vehicle fleet, with 1.8 million spent in 2024-25 and 3.8 million planned for 2025-26. Following my initial visit and direction in 2023 to our depot in Grangetown, it's now undergoing essential refurbishment, and the engineering team has successfully relocated to the South Tees Business Centre to improve working conditions. And on a recent visit, it was clear just how happy they were to be there. I must be clear on resources and pressures. We are delivering a huge volume of work, but with a smaller team and tighter budgets than many comparable councils. In fact, our team is a third of the size of some of our neighbouring councils with roughly the same network. It is my intention to continue to grow our team and to upskill in areas where we would normally have to contract. However, Redcar and Cleveland receives its highways budget from the TVCA. The allocation received from them in 2022 will be the same as still being received in 2032, 3.4 million per year. Going forward, more sustainable external funding is essential, and unless we find approximately an extra 2 million per year from 2026, we will either have to potentially borrow from the banks again or drastically reduce services. The best option for me is to review the current allocation provided by the TVCA, and I am working with them so that they understand our pressures. I'll leave it there, Mr. Mayor. I'll take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Colton-Bay. Councillor Kay.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to talk about the subject of Stanghow Road. Stanghow Road is about 4.5 miles long, and for those who don't know East Cleveland, it runs from Skelton through Lingdale, through Stanghow, and to Lockwood Beck. Now, so that's Skelton to Lockwood Beck. Now, this, I'm glad you mentioned the Ukraine, Mr. I was going to call you Chairman, Cabinet Member, because Stanghowell Road looks as if it's in the Ukraine. It's in such a state, it's been voted the worst road, the worst pothole road in the country. It's absolutely shocking, and it's a disgrace to this council. When I go around Lingdale or Stanghow or Skelton, I'm bombarded continually about the poor state of this road. Now, I did bring this to the Chief Officer's attention about 18 months ago, and he said, well, in a welcoming way, he said, right, we'll bring forward, I think it was 300,000, and we'll do it in 24 to 25. But then Northumbrian Water came along, and they decided to dig the same road up. And so the whole thing had to be delayed again. Now, I'm pleased that it's down in this list, but there's a great defect here that Stanghow is getting no benefit whatsoever from the improvements on Stanghow Road, which is rather ironic, isn't it? This road, as I say, is from Skelton to Lockwood Beck. I've asked the engineers time and time again, why can't it be, why is it going to terminate, why are the repairs going to terminate in Lingdale and not go on for another mile through Stanghow to Lockwood Beck? That part of the road is just as shot as the rest of it. Why is Stanghow being discriminated against? Why is my ward, as soon as it gets into my ward, you seem to think, oh, we'll stop spending money here.
Councillor Kay, can
this
you
is an
wrap up,
absolute
please?
disgrace, and, you know,
Councillor
as I
Kay.
say, give us the money and we'll finish the job. That's Churchill, by the way.
Councillor Quartermain.
And thank you for your question, Councillor Kay. I think you answered it somewhere along the line there. There's no point in us resurfacing a road that's being dug up by the water company. And we sympathise with the residents and the users of that road. But while the water company are there making their repairs, it would be pointless for us to be resurfacing it. And you already answered that within your question. In terms of stretching it further from Lingdale onwards, we can look at that. I mean, if it's an extra mile, I don't see that there would be such an issue. But we have to look at what's safety critical and what's necessary. So we can revisit that, but we have to wait until the Northumbrian Water Limited Company finish their work. So I sympathise, but that's where we're at, and you already answered that in your question. Thank you.
Can I remind everybody this is a question and answer, not a debate. Don't spend 10 minutes on a question. Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Councillor Cartman, for your report. Yours was a lot prettier than Councillor Massey's. Yours has got nice pictures in it. Mine's a little bit parochial to my own ward. Thank you for the resurfacing work you've been doing over the last week or so around Kilda, Cropton, Larkswood. I did have an irate gentleman ring me at 8:05 the other morning saying he couldn't get his car out of the garage, or I know we give them plenty of notice, but to get to work. It's just an observation that I'm passing on to you. He said instead of starting at 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m, could we maybe consider not doing it in the rush hour on the morning from 9 a.m. to 4:30? But I did say it when I would ask you the question on you when you did the report. Okay, but thank you very much for the resurfacing. Kirkleatham very much doesn't look like the Ukraine, which I'm over the moon about. Thank you.
Councillor Quartermain.
Thank you. I mean, obviously there's a lot of resurfacing going on at the moment. It's intensified actually in recent times. And, you know, I appreciate what Councillor Kay's saying about this survey that's out there saying his road's the worst in the country. I'd like to see that survey. But, you know, one of our surveys from the Department of Transport tells us that we've got some of the best roads in the country. Certainly in the top 5, maybe even the top 1. So we will continue to keep resurfacing the road. You see work that is going on at an intense rate. This is what I've been trying to drive since taking over this portfolio. We need to be as reactive as we are proactive. and we are very responsive. I will take that on board. I'll see what we can do in terms of the timing of when we're resurfacing. I know I've seen the work up that's going on up Kilda at the moment. There are lots of machinery up there. There's the tarmac company. I'll have.
Sorry, can I remind
No, I
people it's
appreciate
not
that.
a debate?
But I'll take that back to the department and we'll have a look at it. I'll find out why they start at those times. It's probably operational. Thank you.
I've got a lot of people wishing to speak and ask questions. Keep the questions brief and the answers brief as well. Thank you, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the report, Carl. I'll be brief because I've been told I've got to be. So I want to talk to you about bus shelters, and particularly the one in Gisborough that's on Westgate opposite Wilson Street. Myself and Councillor Bill Suthers have asked repeatedly this year through member inquiries and direct to the highways for this bus shelter to be refurbished, cleaned with an up-to-date timetables, and to replace these ridiculous perspex windows which are full of graffiti. No action has been taken, and I would ask you, as the portfolio holder, to urge either our highways team or TVCA to inspect and refurbish this bus shelter, which is on the main entrance to Gisborough, and is an embarrassment not only to our town, but to the borough. This is just as we are rejuvenating the town through the Levelling Up Fund later this year. And while you were talking, would you believe, I actually sent you a photograph, or two photographs of the bus shelter that I'm talking about, so you know what I'm talking about, and I've even given you the location. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for your time. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Quartermain.
And thank you for your question. Yeah, I mean, when I was assigned to the Transport Committee at the TVCA, this was a bone of contention for me. What I want is uniformed bus shelters right across Redcar and Cleveland, in fact, right across the Tees Valley. I don't see why we can't do that. So one of the asks I had of them was pretty much to take bus shelters off of us, because as you see in the report, you know, we have to do the things that are safety critical first, you know, and these bus shelters in isolation, you know, add up to thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds. So I sympathise, because I want exactly what you want, and what I wanted was the TVCA to take them off of the local authorities or give us more allocation to be able to support this. What they came up with was a plan to bring in a contractor. I think they've spent something like £100,000 on it, to do inspections of all the bus stops right across the Tees Valley, and then to relay that information back to the councils, so that they had a priority list and this, that, and the other. They were also supposed to be doing all the timetables, all the designs, and all that. I mean, we're talking, must be about a year now, and we haven't had anything on that. I can take it back to the TVCA. I'll take up your case there as well and ask them. But you know, while you're asking for to remove perspex, I'm having other councillors here asking me to remove the other type, the caging and all that, and put in perspex. I keep thinking I could take it out of yours and put it in and give you this or something like that. But I appreciate it's an issue. It's something that, you know, I look at all our assets, you know, our bus shelters, our lamp posts, our bins, you know, all our street furniture, and I think, why can't this stuff be
Quartermain, can you answer the questions and get
Sorry,
on, please?
I forgot you lot were here. Sorry. But I think, you know, why can't all this stuff be uniform? And I think the reason why is because we don't have the budget to do it. So we have to focus on what's critical. But I'll have a look at your pictures and pass that on.
Could have missed out off and said the last bit.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your report, Councillor. I've got 4 questions. Thank you for the rapturous report. Coastal. First question relates to coastal. There have been very few slippages in Saltburn on the slope between the upper and lower promenade. but for the last 16 years, the main connecting steps between the two have been closed. They are used every day, unofficially. Can I ask that you, as soon as you have time, revisit the discussion about reopening those steps, which are an invaluable communication facility in the town? My second question relates to budgeting. Nowhere in the capital report does there gain any reference to infrastructure that looks at the demand placed upon the infrastructure by increased housing development. There is going to be more housing development, is there not? And yet the infrastructure that services, particularly East Cleveland, is not adequate. We have had on the table for many years now the prospect of dualling the Mosque bypass. We have also had on the table the introduction of a roundabout at the top of 4-lane ends. Can we have discussions with Tees Valley so that funding can be released to secure these capital developments? Briefly comment on public rights of way. Thank you for all the comments that you've made supporting the work done by the Countryside team and the volunteers. I would have welcomed the insertion in your third bullet point in reference to Cleveland Way and England Coastal Path for the Langbath Loop, which is our 38-mile long-distance challenge walk within the borough. So I would hope that in the future all references to public rights of way can include that particular feature that is now available on its rerouted map. And my fourth question relates to parking. You will recall that at the last council meeting I asked for a very urgent meeting with yourself and highway officers to look at the challenges presented to residents in Saltburn, particularly on Marine Parade, with the continuing challenge of the depopulation of the environment by the parking of mobile homes. Unfortunately, the motions passed by this council were not implemented, and that is a matter of record. You agreed to meet, we did meet, and I submitted a raft of proposals that could be discussed in the short term to try and ameliorate the challenges posed. We have a meeting scheduled for the 11th of August. I am hopeful that all of the suggestions that I made have been discussed, evaluated, and I look forward hopefully to a positive outcome of each of those.
Waterman.
Be brief, Mr. Mayor. Yep. So in terms of the steps, I think this conversation's been around the houses a few times. I'm not entirely sure this is in my portfolio. I kind of feel like it's either economic growth, it's steps, but I can see the connection. Okay, I'll fetch it back up, but I think again this is about funding and what we can prioritise. But I appreciate this is an issue for you. In terms of infrastructure, there is something in the report there, and it's about our asset management plan and how we look at future what's going on in the future in the borough and how we manage that in terms of our carriageways. But I'll find that for you and I'll ping it across. Yeah, public rights of way, yeah, absolutely, we can have a look at that walk and put it in along with the list. I just need to know if this is an official public right of way or a permissive one, etc. So we need to understand what that walkway is. Okay. And in terms of motorhomes, yes, we've got our meeting on the 11th. We have gone over the different options and the different. I mean, it's a very challenging situation. What I don't want, and I don't think most of us want, is to deny visitors coming to our areas, but we don't want them, well, basically, for want of a better phrase, taking the mick, and overnight stays for long periods. I have heard the conversation of one motorhome there being turned into an Airbnb, which is ridiculous. So, you know, there's a problem there. We need to fix it. I think we're almost there. I've also looked at impact assessments as well. We shift all their motorhomes, where are they going to go? But we need to look further down the road. We might have to chase our tail a little bit on that one. But yeah, we're coming, and we have taken on board everything that you said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I know we have 16 more people wishing to speak on this particular portfolio. I will not be accepting any more after Councillor Bendolo. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Carl, for the report. Good report. I'll try and be brief. This is the first time I ever use a piece of paper as soon as I can read. I usually just speak, don't I? First of all, I would like to praise the team. The road, the pathway from Broughton down to Skinny Grove is an excellent job, and Broughton Ward councillors would like to thank you for that. And also, quickly, the work that's being done in Skinny Grove, because every time the bank gets stuck, it comes through Skinny Grove, and we've done work with 20 mile an hour through the village and different things. So we thank you for that, and we'd like to thank Ross Asadi and his team for working under the pressure they do. Right, so that's that out the road. Right, let's have a look. Slipways, we'll take that. The cost of the Dundas one, could we have the cost of that? Because we have 3 little slipways in Skinny Grove, and nobody can get onto the beach. So that, there isn't any, and people should be able to visit Skinny Grove and get down onto our beach safely. And they're not as big as the one on Dundas, so a small percentage. Could you please tell me if any progress on getting the slipways so the boats can get off, and people in wheelchairs and people with sticks can get down there? That's one. The camper vans, which we still have a big problem in Skinny Grove, as you know. The other day, there was a caravan parked there for 2 weeks with 2 boys in there that are well known to the police. They even had a dinghy, and they were going off pinching the lobsters out of the pots and such, and intimidating people. When we asked for it to be removed, we got the answer back. First of all, it's got to go through homeless, then it goes to something else, and basically we haven't got the authority to move it on our own land. So so could we please look into maybe changing a bylaw or doing something to make sure that we can do something about it, instead of just, there was people intimidated and people worried about these lads burgling and things like that. So, people are suffering for it. So could we look into changing things and maybe a bylaw or something like that? Right, the flooding. And you mentioned a new bridge in Skinny Grove. I think it's a £10 million project. We've got 1.7 million, which we thankfully for, but we haven't got the full funding for it. So what happens, as it always does, if we don't get the funding or we run out of it, where do we stand with it? They're talking about taking over the playing field and to do all the cabins and everything on, and then putting a new play area back in afterwards. What guarantees do we get that if they run out of funding and things, that they'll put a new play area in? We seem still all over the place, because at the end of the day as well, there's a lot more to this project. There's parking, the safety, and the Beck's only one of 4 ways that we flood in Skinny Grove. So there's a lot of attention going on this. And I would like to see, and the ward councillors would like to see something done and a solution to it. So that's that. The shore management you mentioned, from the gate to Huntcliffe, stops at Huntcliffe, then Cowbar. Again, the cliffs at Skinny Grove in between are the 2 highest cliffs in the Bowlby and Huntcliffe. we have loads of landfalls on there, dangerous. We're not mentioned. There used to be an old saying that it stops at Saltburn, a bridge is built and starts again at Stades. Is that the case now? Are we investing in a bridge? Because in the middle
Councillor
seems
Hunt,
to be missing all the
could
time.
you wrap up, please?
I certainly will, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to say one more thing before I do, though. Right.
As long as it's quick.
Yeah. Just answer, please, of what we're going to do in the middle area from Saltburn to Stairs, because Loftus suffers as well, and we just seem to be forgotten. Could you give us a guarantee that you'll be putting more work into it? Thank you. Sorry about being a bit long.
Councillor Quartermain.
Okay, yeah, and thank you for your questions. Thank you for starting with a nice compliment and then bringing me back down to earth. So, yeah, that was good. Yeah, so where am I? Slipways, Dundas Street. Well, you know, this is part of our, what the borough looks after. We look after our coastline. I'll interject one of your last questions there as well about are you forgotten? Absolutely not. What we have there is we have something like 5 kilometres of coastline that we look after from Southgare all the way through to Cowbar. We could list everything in the report all the way through, but that's not because we're ignoring what goes on in Skinning Grove, of course. We're part of a larger project there. I think it's called the Shoreline Management Plan. And what they do is they look at I think it was 2006 to 12, something like that, through DEFRA. They look at each part of the coast. And I think there was a coastal plan there, team, that put everything into units. So like, I don't know what the distance is, 100 yards or whatever. So they look at that and they monitor that over, I think it's bi-annually. Every couple of years they look and they do a report and assessment. So from Southgare all the way through to Cowbar, that is done. I think 2020 Environment Agency added something to that to improve the review on that. But it shows the challenges that we've got. Again, you've got to look at what's safety critical here, and we can't fight nature, but we can do what we can to defend against it and to put improvements in. Absolutely, Dundas Slipway, again, we just want to fix it, but I think fixing it would be something like £2 million out of the budget. But if we're taking that £2 million and stick it into Dundas Slipway, that means £2 million of our roads or whatever else doesn't get done. So we need to find a cost-effective way of looking after that. Same with the slipways in Skinning Grove. Doesn't mean they're forgotten. It means what's the most important thing here? But is it to leave them and just cordon them off? Is it even if we demolish them, we're looking at about the same sort of money. So there's no easy answer there, basically. Okay. Landfall, Southgare. Oh yeah, that's part of that. The caravans, I came down and had a visit with you, with Rob Hoof, you remember, and that part of the car park, that part of the bay area.
Councillor Quartermain, perhaps you could finish up, please. We move on. The next question. We've still got a lot of questions coming your way.
Well, I can only try and answer what I can try and answer here. I mean, I can come to the other stuff for you as well. The bridge. We've had the EA in the room, and the utility companies, and the MP, and yourselves. And we will continue doing that. There's another consultation, I think, October. We're squeezing a meeting in between times, and with Jamie of the EA, and we'll get that sorted out as well. I can't remember your last question, unfortunately. I couldn't really hear it. But if you want to see me afterwards or write to me, please. Okay.
It's a question answered under the general rules of debate. Okay, can I ask Councillor Cutler? No debate. Please, everybody. Councillor Cutler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Can you
Thank
keep
you,
your
Carl.
question as succinct as possible,
I'll
rather than
do
going
my
on for
best.
half an hour?
Thank you, Carl, for an absolutely brilliant report. A lot of positive things in there, and once again, can I echo what Councillor Hunt said about the team? The team need a lot of praise working under the pressures and the budget that they've got to work under. So, absolutely amazing. And even Broughton Ward has been mentioned many times. The positive about the road between Carlinghow and Broughton. The high wall's just been rebuilt, absolutely amazing. All great proactive work on the drains down into Carlinghow on the right hand side, making the flood great, absolutely fantastic. I'll get on with it. But as I say, fantastic. But once again, I've got a little negative part, which is probably only tiny, but it's massive.
Can you ask? Can you
ward.
please ask your question? Otherwise, you will need to.
I'm into trouble, Carl.
Sit down.
It's about the bus 1 and 2 service. I know you're fully in support of it. And on Monday, we went out into the village and we got 200 signatures in support of bringing that bus into the village. The bus only comes round the bypass, doesn't pick any people up. It could come through the village and pick up 30 people, and those people are the pensioners and the families that need to get to the Skelton Retail Park. They can't get there. There's no service whatsoever. Could you please pressurise TVCA, and I'll give you this paper, into pushing forward for that bus to go through the village and not round the bypass, because it's a pointless thing, and I'd like to get the figures of if the bus is being used for that service. And my second question is, sorry, Carl, do you feel that 55,000 is
Councillor
enough for
Cutler,
cemeteries
you've had
in
your
the budget?
time plus more.
Thank you, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, for the last couple of years, I have been pushing for East Cleveland, the TVCA allocate the Transport Authority, so that they really organise the buses. And it's a business venture with Stagecoach and Arriva and others. But you know, when they're looking at the rural areas, they're saying, well, if it's more than £5 a head, we can't justify it as a business model. Which is challenging for us, because we pay concessions, and they get money for providing buses there, the bus tip, which is about 7.1 million. And then I see what's going on in places like Manchester and Liverpool and that, you know, and I think, you know, the amount of subsidy that we're paying to our bus companies, we may as well just do it ourselves. You know, just bring it in-house and start doing it ourselves. And maybe there's something in that, but it's not easy. What I propose to do, I'm going away on holiday shortly, but sometime in August, I need one, Barry, I need one. I think sometime at the end of August, September, I want to organise a sit down with East Cleveland councillors of all stripes, with the TVCA and us officers, so that you can better understand how difficult it is for me to relay your messages on all your separate asks, but I want to do that because I think it's important. I think, you know, the TVCA have been given a huge allocation of money, nearly £1 billion, and they only give us a certain cut of that, a very small slice, and it hasn't changed for 10 years. And some of the projects on there, I'm sorry, but they're just, for me, they're not feasible. So why would we even waste our time? That money can be going to the 1-2 bus.
Councillor Quartermain.
For a longer period. It could go to...
Councillor Quartermain, could you speak into the microphone rather than speaking to the questioner? And you've had more than your minute on the clock here.
But it
answering the
matters
question.
to me as much as it matters to you. So that's what I propose to do. I'll get the East Cleveland councillors in the room with the TVCA, and we can start hammering this thing out. I'm not promising I can do anything about it, but they'll see what my frustrations are as well.
Thank you.
Of course, yeah.
Councillor Grogan.
Thank you, Councillor Courtman, for your report. I echo Alex's statements regarding the work that's done in Kirkleatham, which is currently still going on as we speak. I'm a bit disappointed to see, though, in the 25-26 treatment programme, Plantation Road and Larkswood Road is not mentioned. It's one of the busiest roads in Redcar, especially with the new development that's going on. So I'd just like to know quickly, when will that be put on the work schedule? Which year you're looking at doing that? Potholes, we've got £1 million from government coming in 25-26. Could you please let the members know the details when it comes through to you, as it states in your report? Do you think it's enough? Bush shelters in Kirkleatham, on West Dyke Road specifically, the stands are an absolute disgrace. There's exposed wires, the lights don't work, they leak. I echo your sentiments if you can get the TVCA to actually take them on. We've just had a new one, sorry, Bill, that's been put on Kirkleatham Lane. That's just been finished this morning or yesterday. And very quickly, you mentioned borrowing and budgets. Where's all the money coming from central government that was promised in the general election, that we were all promised as voters, that we were all getting extra money on top of it's getting spent elsewhere? So on top of that £22 billion pothole that's been mentioned many times. Thank you. Kept that sweet enough, I hope.
Mr. Quartermain.
Okay, yeah, in terms of Plantation Road, Larkswood, if it's not on the resurfacing plan, please make representation to us and I can have a look at that. I don't know where, we have a 6-year rolling programme. I've made sure that that was a public document that you can all see, and then you can cherry pick and go, we think it should be further up, and then we can send the inspector out to have a look at those roads and determine whether it should be interjected there somewhere. So make representations if you're not happy with certain roads in your wards. I must apologize, I didn't hear the second question, but okay, Bush was I've already kind of answered. Again, put that in, represent. In terms of funding, I mean, there was a number of pots that the previous government were promising, but they didn't always have the money there, where that money was coming from. They were throwing this information out. I can point to, for instance, the Network North money. I think it was something like 15 billion that was going to go to North. I think Tees Valley was going to get something like 100 million. Now I think this council received a very small fraction of that early on, but then there was no more funding after that. The funding just stopped. And this is part of the problem that we've got at the moment with our allocation from the TVCA. We get 3.4 million, it should be something like 6 million. But the caveat for their reasoning for giving us that amount of money was because they're pointing to funding that probably doesn't even exist anymore, this 100 million, because of the election, the change, but that money wasn't there in the first place. So this is something I need to nail down, because I need to go back to the TV saying this money, this allocation that we've been given just isn't enough. We don't want to go back to the bank and borrow or cut services. So I'll be doing that. Is that how? No.
Councillor Julie Hart.
I'll be very quick now. Thank you for the investment that Hutton has been receiving, and the work has been very good for what's been coming out. My question is, how do we determine which roads are getting resurfaced and which paths are getting repaved? Because I have regular meetups and conversations with our excellent inspector, and he would agree with me that Dorset Road is down for patching again, and Dorset Road is patched every month. In fact, it's got more patches on than a 1970s denim jacket. And we've got Neville Grove and Lucia Lane in Gisborough, who are predominantly are very steep hills, and you know, an average age of 75 to 80 living on those roads, and the pavements are in really bad repair. The inspector agrees with me that there should be a priority, but we can never get them pushed forward. So my question is, how do we prioritise these roads? Because although Farndale looks amazing, the work wasn't as important as Dorset Road or Neville Grove. Thanks, Carl.
Councillor Quartermain.
Thanks. And again, you've been out and you've spoken to the inspectors, so you'll know that the inspection teams go out all the time and do reviews on all roads and all paper, and then they make a determination based on their criteria of what needs doing. But over the course of time, that doesn't bear fruit, does it? Because a year later, the damage on this road or the damage on the pathway has intensified and increased, and that changes the priority of that. As ward councillors, that's our position, to be pointing that and directing that back to myself and to the team. So all of you can try and prioritise the roads that are in. We can send the inspectors out and they'll look and they'll say whether or not I'm just a layperson, and I'll look at it and go, yeah, that's terrible. But they'll look at it and go, okay, it's not safety critical or whatever. But I take the points. But you need to make those representations. Copy me in. I've always said this, so I know what's going on as well. If I don't see it, I don't know what's happening. Okay, is that okay? Yeah. There's more as well in terms of patching, for instance. We've just purchased like a bobcat, so we don't have to do too many potholing. That we can do the work in house as well. We can do it more thoroughly, so that we're not having to keep going back and repatching like your denim jacket.
Thank you. Councillor Pugh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Quartermain, for your report. I could say a whole lot, but I won't. I'll keep it short. Last year, there were some traffic calming measures implemented on Flats Lane, and we were really, really happy about that because the residents were really concerned about speeding on Flats Lane. We thought traffic calming measures great. So a digital sign was installed and some rumble strips. However, sadly, they don't seem to be working. The speeding we need a survey, and I've been told we can't have a survey, but the speeding issue seems to be the same. And the rumble strips are so inadequate that residents don't believe they're there. I've had arguments with residents saying, no, we've got these rumble strips up there, and they don't believe me. So my question is, basically, will you just agree to meet with me to discuss this? Because I approached Highways last week, and they said they won't take any further action. But if we've implemented it as a council, a traffic calming scheme that simply isn't working, it would seem a waste of money to just leave it there not working, if you know what I mean. Thank you.
And I'll give you a very quick. Of course, I'll come and meet with you. And I received your email back in May about the new housing development and your concerns there on Skipper's Lane. I did forward that information on. And again, and I saw the responses from the officer, Michael. And that's all part of our strategic transport plan. We got to understand as new developments start as well, how that impacts our carriageways, and they're all over that. But yes, I'll absolutely come and meet you.
Councillor Morgan.
Questions related. One on resurfacing activities. Can you please reassure us that a proper job will be done with respect to the whole resurfacing of the Swans Corner roundabout, whatever you want to call it these days, that will last significantly longer than a couple of years? I mean, seriously though, there's huge disruption going to be caused when all the access roads to the roundabout are closed off to all road users, including the bus companies. So can you reassure us that it's going to last us? Secondly, on S106 monies, particularly for sort of infrastructure, road users, bikes, walking, anything like that, do you agree that this council should be requesting S106 money from developers in neighbouring councils? I'm thinking particularly of the thousands of houses that have been built or that are proposed to be built on the southern and eastern borders of Middlesbrough Borough Council, right up to the railway line, which is our boundary on the west side. These are going to cause significant problems on the roads, for our roads as well as Middlesbrough roads. An example of this is Middlesbrough Council actually got S106 money from the Rosebery Manor development at Swans Corner, and that was for money to be spent on the western extension of Stainton Way, which is miles away actually. So don't you think we should be doing the same? And thirdly, Longbank Estate off Ormsby Bank, you may be familiar with, they're all called banks. Would you agree to visit the Longbank Estate with us, please, to see the unsafe roads and pavements around there? We've got sinking roads in a couple of places on Farm Bank. We've got terrible cracks and multiple pothole fillings that are creating little mountains of their own, concrete showing through. So would you please agree to visit with us and maybe bring the inspector with you? Yes, yes, and yes, we'll do.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Quatermain.
Yeah, Swans Corner. There seems to always be problems with Swans Corner since it was developed, doesn't it? But yeah, I'll take that back to the officers and we can have a look about the longevity and ensure that service is robust. 106 neighbouring councils, if it impacts on us, I totally agree. Why wouldn't I? Yes, would be the answers to that. And well, I've agreed to meet Councillor Pugh. I can't exactly turn you down, can I? So Longbank Estate, I'll be there, and I'll bring the officers with me.
3 yeses.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
I'd just like to say, like many of us say, thank you over the last few years for the work that's been carried out in Eston Ward, along with myself, Councillor Martin and Councillor Massey. The team have been fantastic. A lot of roads have been relayed. All the markings done around the schools, and the Lazenby bypass has been done as well. So I'd like to thank that, and the highways officers have been very supportive to us through their meetings. So just a thank you to them. So just a few key issues. Illegal parking remains illegal parking throughout Eston Ward is very serious. Times at 18, 19 cars on a particular Saturday. The enforcement are really stretched to this. You mentioned block gullies in your report. I've been chasing block gullies now for nearly a year, especially from Greystones roundabout right up into sort of Spencer Beck. They are absolutely full to the top of mud, so I'd like your support on that, please. E-scooter safety, I'd like to know what your plans are around e-scooter safety. We're seeing a significant increase in these all over the borough, let alone just in Eston Ward. These do pose a real threat to pedestrians, the riders themselves, and also vehicles, considering these are legal to use. And also what's your support on the Greystones roundabout and Lazenby bypass to improve safety on there as well, along with the TVCA, which has been supported by Councillor Martin. Thank you. Oh, can you let me £2.80 to top me hour parking up, please?
Councillor Quatermain.
No. So, illegal parking is enforcement. That's not my portfolio, but you know, I appreciate that. I'm always ringing them in my ward. I urge you to do the same and speak to who's Adam. Adam's the portfolio holder for that, as is I think e-scooter safety as well, wouldn't it be? So that would be under Adam as well. I know they go. I know. Sorry. Oh, the gully cleaning is ours. Yeah. So in terms of the gully cleaning, Spencer Beck. I missed the other place, but you know, send that representation through to me, and we'll look at it. Like I said in the report, we're getting more and more sophisticated in emptying our gullies, and we've, like I said, we've done that work on 32,000 gullies, and what the asset management program will do will allow us to understand that this gully fills up faster than that gully. There's 32,000 of them. So we got this kind of like AI thing going on. Once we have that properly in place, they're still playing with that and learning how that works, but we're nailing it, and we'll get to that. But if there's any issue in the meantime, absolutely, send in the representation, and again with the Greystones, send that through to me. Like, and you know, if you want me to come out and visit, I'll bring the officers with me, no problem. Yeah, I'll do it. I'll squeeze it all on Monday, and I'll have the rest of the week off. Okay. E-scooters is Adam. Yeah. Or anything policing and all that kind of stuff will be Adam. Okay.
Councillor McGuinness.
For your report. And thank you, Mayor. It's nice to see in your report the work that's being carried out in Normanby. I mean, you mentioned Flats Lane Woodland Centre. We've got Flats Lane itself resurfaced. We've had Bexley Drive road and pavement. Even in Bankfields, a junction there. We've even had a new bus stop at the Conquest, but we never had a bus stop prior to that. The one I've left out on purpose was the High Street, which is the four-way traffic signal, which is a major construction work, which was closed for 11 weeks. 3 of the directions are working perfectly, absolutely over the moon with it, but the main one from Normanby Road to Normanby, coming from South Bank and Teesville, Greenstown, that sort of way, it's exactly the same, Cal. We requested a right turn. Paul Salvin, when he got elected in 2021, he approached the highways team for a right turn. When we got elected, we had a meeting 6 months before. The work got carried out with the highways team. They showed us the information. We said there's no right turn, a delayed right turn towards Ormsby. Now bear in mind we've got major housing developments on Skippers Lane, Spencerbeck, Ormsby, which is about 300 more houses will all be turning right, or most of them will be turning right there. The traffic goes back still beyond the cemetery, sometimes goes all the way back to Fabian Road Junction, which is like 20-25 minutes away. We've had meetings with the highway teams on site. They have registered some interest if we're going to do publicity and things like that online, but nothing's happening at all. I would also like for you to come and visit us, but when it is busy, which is like from 3 o'clock to 5:45, doesn't have to be as late as 5:45, it'll be from 3 o'clock, 3:30. The traffic is just ridiculous. And the complaints from Teesville Ward, Normanby Ward, Ormsby Ward is exactly the same over and over again.
A quarter, mate.
Well, Councillor Chain, I know I'm aware of the issues there, and it's been a long going process, and it's not an easy fix again, but very willing to come and meet you as well, along with everybody else. But I do appreciate what you're saying. This is what I was saying before as well. When new developments start, it puts more pressure on our carriageway, and then we need a proper strategy, a proper transport plan, which we've got going on, and that might come into that. I would have thought it will. Whether or not we can change that, I don't know. I'm just a lay person. At the end of the day, I'm very, very willing to come and meet you. I'll bring the officers with me, and I'll get up to speed with the argument. Okay.
Councillor Cheney.
Yeah, Carl. Thank you for your report, but it would be amiss of me not to raise some issues within the Teesville ward. And one of them is the Normanby Road traffic lights at the top. We've had email exchanges for 18 months. We've had officers out. We've been promised this, we've been promised that, reference to turning right. And I can only sum it up as broken promises. It's now got to a stage where the emails, which you're copied into, officers are saying that there's nothing wrong with the traffic lights. Yeah, every resident in Normanby who goes through them lights will tell you that there is something wrong with them traffic lights. It's no point in just coming out to look at the traffic lights. We want some action. So that needs sorting out as soon as possible. I'd also like to bring you on to Fabian Road and invite you to a public meeting that's going to take part in the next couple of weeks. Reference parking along there, cars getting damaged, cars parking on pavements, scooters, wheelchairs, prams not being able to access properties because of the parking on the road. And I'd also like to invite you to a public meeting from the residents on Burns Road. Ross Rosardi's actually been out on Burns Road and looked, and one of the concerns is where we put the temporary school, the academy, which by the way we're getting paid for that being on our land. We asked for a give way sign at the junction and we were told it can't be done. We asked for a give way line on the road. We were told the road was in that bad of a state, it was no point in doing it. So now on 12 months later, we've got buses driving into cars, we've got wing mirrors coming off, we've got residents who were scared to park the cars on Burns Road, parking them elsewhere. So they've basically tasked me to ask you, will you attend that public meeting also? So there's my 2 questions for you, Cal. Thank you.
Councillor Quartermain.
It's going to be a busy week, I tell you that. More than a week, I think. I don't know about
tomorrow.
I don't know about broken promises, Councillor Cheney. Certainly not from me. I don't know what other people may have said to you about these traffic lights. What I do know is what I'm advised, and that the officers have been out and looked at these traffic lights, and they tell me that they are working as per purpose. I have already agreed to come out and have a look at them myself, but as a layperson, I have to take the advice of the experts, the officers, the engineers who understand. Now, my understanding of that issue is that when people are crossing, the green man goes off, and people are concerned. But I'm assured that when people are stood in the road, if they stood there for 5 minutes or crossed over quickly, those lights remain red, and they won't change. I'm quite happy to come out and have a look at it, but as I say, I am being advised that these traffic lights are working as purpose. In terms of your invitations to Fabian Road and Burns Road, these are issues that have never been raised with me. I don't know about them. I'm quite happy to take representation for them. If I'm available for those public meetings, I'll quite happily come and attend, and I'll bring the officer with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hargreaves.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just want to talk about the pavement parking aspect of it. So obviously on the Esplanade in Redcar, it seems to have got worse the last year or two, of people just parking to get their ice creams and that, and obviously it's a really wide path, which it needs to be because it's a tourist destination. So what I would ask is, I know there have been plans in the past for having furniture on that area to stop people parking there. So could we have planters, benches, something like that to deter it? I'm going to anticipate the answer about money. What I would say is, recently we've had outside Grangetown Post Office, they put barriers up there to stop pavement parking. So if we're looking at priorities, I think obviously the Esplanade is a very busy touristy area, and I think we should consider looking at planters, benches, again, just to deter it. For your thoughts. Thank you.
Councillor Quartermain.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor, for bringing up a question about my ward. Did you not have a question about your ward? But that's fine. I'll answer the question about my ward, the Esplanade. And absolutely, again, it's an enforcement issue, which doesn't come under my portfolio, unfortunately. As a ward councillor, it frustrates me. Yes, I'm calling out the enforcement all the time, not just there, but all over. We do have a pavement zone there, where if you park on the pavement, you can receive a PCN. But where normally that doesn't happen. But yes, we looked at things like putting up new penguins along there, like as bollards, or fencing or other things. What we want to try and do is keep that Esplanade streamlined, so it's a nice open area. In fact, if I could, I'd probably reposition the shelters, so you can look straight out as well. But I can't because it wouldn't be cost effective. So yeah, I don't really know how much further I can go with that, because the things that I would like to do, I can't afford with my council ward allowance. And the things I request cost a lot more. And where's that funding going to come from? So I have secured some funding for Cotham, and hopefully that's going to get match funded. But there's other priorities. That's as simple as that. It's there's more bigger issues out there than people parking on the pavement, unfortunately. But I share your frustration. But that's where we're at.
Councillor Salvin.
Well asked. Yeah, thanks for the report. Just one question really. I've brought it up before and I'll bring it up again. It's bottom of Cricket Lane in Nornby as you head towards Ormsby. Would there be no turn onto the A174 at Flats Lane or Ormsby westbound and eastbound of Flats Lane as well? It's quite an important road getting from east to west across the top of the borough. Now when it does rain, that gully does flood significantly, And I know that Councillor Taylor touched on this earlier, but we just need something doing. When it does flood, the whole road floods. Traffic comes to a standstill. People can't get across even walking. I know what the issue will be. It's probably going to be similar to what was in Flats Lane, which the council done a great job in fixing. But we have some unique water up that way that crusts on the inside of the pipe, like an artery. It gets thinner and thinner, and it probably needs a good old clean. I'm just wondering if you could maybe hurry up the council into trying to solve this issue, because when it does flood, like I say, the whole place is at a standstill. And yeah, just your thoughts on that, please.
Councillor Quartermain.
Yeah, thanks for that. And again, quite happy to get that sorted out. I mean, we'll get the gully truck out there and sort it out. But I can imagine it's the infrastructure there, the pipes aren't adequate enough anymore. You know, they're probably old. And again, this is about replacement, and so it becomes a bigger issue. I did bring this up actually at a recent NRFCC meeting about, you know, these flash floods that we're getting. You know, there's this huge downpour of water, and suddenly it throws up all the problems that we haven't resolved. You know, and we need to catch up with what's happening with the weather. So yeah, 32,000 gullies. You know, it's always going to throw up the issues. But absolutely, like, and again, all these questions, please do send me some representation in email so that I've got that and I don't forget from my notepad here. Okay? Thank you.
Councillor Davies.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Quartermain, can't believe it's really been a year since the last report from you. It seems like it was only yesterday. However, I welcome the flood alleviation works as part of your report for Loftus Ward, given that we had such a small amount of properties that were always getting battered by it. Hopefully this work will prove to be successful and no one else will get water ingressing into their properties this coming winter. Yesterday, officers met with myself and Tim on a walkabout in Loftus, and as gullies are mentioned and we're approaching the winter season, several gullies on our high street were rammed full of silt and soil and blooming with summery weeds. Obviously, as we are getting into the winter sort of months now, this sort of thing wants to be done. I don't know what AI technology tells you what needs to be done and when, but simply just looking at them, you can tell what needs doing, and you know, we're going to be on top of it now and making sure that these are done, but I would be expecting that these are probably done before September, as that they're a matter of urgency, given our location. Residents expect these things doing as a minimum. When all the basics are up to date, we will know for certainty that the flood alleviation work as well, that has been heavily invested in, has been worth it. I absolutely welcome your intention not to raise fees and charges. I'm sure that's for all councillors and residents of the borough. One of the main concerns that I've got as part of the report is the 7.1 million in borrowing, as that's only going to give us more strain on that budget in later years. And given your warnings on page 15 on the staffing issue, it's a major concern for me. I'm conscious that these repairs are going to need to be made, but does this not, along with the social services part of the previous report, just show the crisis that is looming in local government, and that current government need to get the grip of this as soon as possible? I don't believe any of that borrowing either applies to the cow bar works, so that's an additional source. Maybe you can confirm that for me. I don't know if anyone knows about Cowber, but obviously they're looking at realigning the road and demolishing a house to make the road access into Cowber, so there's potentially about £1 million worth of work that needs to be done, and that's only going to get bigger over the years as part of a long-term plan. The next part coincidentally goes on to traffic signals. Now, Councillor Cheney's mentioned something very, very similar to what I'm about to say, so maybe there is something in the water in terms of traffic lights. So just recently we had a road traffic collision at Loftus traffic lights, where it comes to turning right. And this has been an ongoing problem for a long time, where the lights seem to just run out of sync. Now, a vehicle turned right with a child on board and was sideswiped by an Arriva bus.
Councillor Wayne, could you hurry along, please?
Exactly. So I think there's definitely some cause in the traffic lights. Now I know that they run on signal. Something is sending that signal, and it's not under the road or anything like that. It goes from a box at the side of the junction. There's obviously something somewhere, and it might be that myself and Councillor Cheney get together and we sort of have a look and do some investigation work ourselves to see if it's a similar issue that he's referring to. And my last part, Mr. Mayor, I said it last time that Councillor Quartermain did his report, which is why I'm going to highlight it again. I can't believe it's been a year. Trains and strategy. In that report, where's the strategy again? Where is the long-term ambition for Redcar and Cleveland with Tees Valley Combined Authority for this borough? What is it that you're fighting for at Tees Valley Combined Authority for Redcar and Cleveland? At the end of the day, trains are part of transporting Redcar and Cleveland, and there's nothing in that report at all about trains. And that's what's going to link people of this borough to jobs, investment, and all over travel for the rest of the United Kingdom, and there's nothing in it at all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That's right.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, weeds is street cleaning, which I think comes under Adam, so that's not mine. However, you know, I share exactly the same. I think it's probably all over the borough. You know, we have issues with weeds, just like every other council. And not so long back, we reduced the amount of the chemical. I can't think what it's called, but so that makes it even harder. Yeah, traffic lights. Yeah, it's something you haven't raised with me before. So yeah, please make representation on that, and then I can look at that. You mentioned £7.1 million. What was? Oh, that was the borrowing under the previous administration, yours. But we are getting to that situation now, coming up to 2026, 27, I think it is, where we will need to be finding an extra £2 million. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about potential borrowing. We will end up having to borrow again unless the TVCA start paying us a little bit more allocation, or we start reducing our services. Yeah, and the last thing, again, the TVCA projects, the CRSTS stuff, the TCR stuff, you know, there's a whole long list of them, including these Cleveland train. There's also South Bank, and there's Redcar, and there's all kinds of things. So it's one of a number of feasibility projects. Now, whether or not it is feasible, I don't know. But that's something that the TVCA are working on. It's a public document. You can find it on their website, just as everybody else can.
Thank you. Can I just check, Councillor Bendlow? You no longer wish to speak? Okay, in which case I've only got 2 more speakers. Everyone will please to know. Councillor Gray.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Carl, for your report. A lot of this has been covered, but this was after our walk yesterday with myself and Wayne. Bus stops, and he's not here, Adam, but would you agree to work with Adam on getting bus stops to your remit? But I'm not wanting new bus stops, new glass, like Bill, but, you know, just a good clean. Every single bus stop past Carling Howe is clear channel. Sorry, it's not clear channel. So
the question should be to the portfolio, not to somebody else.
But it's, Mr. Mayor, it's his bus stop. That one, so if you can look at that, enforcement, I hope you're not wasting your time and money going down to London to get this new law or bill passed when we haven't got enforcement to enforce it. And I know it's not your portfolio, but please, will you be working? Could you agree with me that you're going to work with the portfolio holder on enforcement if this does get passed, because we struggle for enforcement up in East Cleveland? That's just a quick yes/no answer. Wayne's sort of took me fire a little bit on the drains, but surely any highway engineer would know that rain and water causes more damage to roads than anything else. And again, with the drains full in Loftus, before the rainy season starts, we were told a couple of years ago, well, we have a cyclical cycle on you know, we never see basically many in Loftus. So could you agree to at least have a look at Loftus and see if we can get things done up in Loftus before the rainy season starts. And surely it would be cheaper to buy another gully sucker than paying for the roads to be fixed. But that's something I'm chucking there. The other one, and this is a bit of a veiled question, Mr. Mayor, but Carl will know exactly what I'm on about. Steve, what I'd say to you is if you can't get up Stanhow Road, you need to use Grinkle Lane. No, you can't, because we're in the same problem there. So, Carl, you understand that one, and could you come back to something on that one, please? Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Quatermain.
Yeah, and thank you for your questions. Yeah, bus shelters, of course I work with and try and get them cleaned up. Again, it's been an issue for a while. We've got this contractor from TVCA that's meant to be going around inspecting all these things. We haven't had that inspection report, so we have, I don't know how many bus shelters. It's in the report. Enforcement, yeah, of course I work with enforcement. If this pavement parking becomes law, what we don't know is the detail of that policy at the moment. I know, I forget her name now, but I've been working with Marcia D. Cordova.
Councillor Quatermain, please speak into the microphone.
Sorry about that, Mr. Mayor. So we don't know what that's going to look like at the moment in terms of enforcement, and we don't even know if this is actually ever going to become law. It's been going on for about 20 years. But we push. Drains, absolutely. Again, make representation. Let me know what's going on up there. In terms of gully suckers, we have bought another gully sucker. We should be able to do more, and we want to buy more fleet, and we want to employ more people. And Grinkle Lane, again, this is about the allocation that we've been given and what's safety critical and what's used a lot and all that kind of. At the moment, there's no funding for Grinkle Lane in place, so we'd have to go out again, like, and prudentially borrow for that, or we stop doing all the other work that we do that you're also referencing. So, but I know it's still there. But, you know, we did Skinning Grove, didn't we, to Loftus? It was a back lane, very kind of similar in makeup, very well used. I got that done. I got that pushed through, but it wasn't priority. Okay, but I appreciate.
Please don't speak to the question.
I've got the floor here.
Speak to the microphone, not to the question.
I appreciate, you know, living in the East Cleveland areas, you know, how rural that is and how isolated sometimes you may feel, and some of those roads are absolute arteries to everything else. So it's very difficult to be able to, and also you've got the hills and all that, so then you get landslides. You're more susceptible to damage out in East Cleveland than the rest of the place. I appreciate all those things. Okay.
Councillor Evans.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your report. I'll be very, very brief. Regarding cemeteries, the paths are going to be inspected. You're employing somebody else to do it. The budget is £55,000. We've got far more than 5 parks, so that's about £10,000, and anybody who's been involved with any path work knows it's going to be significantly more than that, and not
in Councillor Quatermain's portfolio.
Sorry.
The questions are on highways and transport.
I thought it was mentioning that he was getting another inspector to, was on page 39, I think. There was another inspector coming to look at structures and pathways in parks. Well, if he could let me know who I should be addressing this matter to, I'd be grateful. Thank you. Question 2 was timetables in bus shelters, because the one near me, not in my ward, but one I use frequently on West Dyke Road, Trinity Walk, has not had a timetable up for months. So that's less than helpful for anybody who is visiting the area. You have no idea when a bus is coming. I do appreciate that we have a lot of areas to get timetables in, and Arriva provide the timetables, but we have to get them up There was also the cleanliness of bus shelters. I was waiting on the coast road because I use public transport all the
Councillor
time.
Evans, could
and
you email him?
Sorry.
So we can have a comfort break before
All
4?
right. The cleanliness of them, they're so dirty you can't see when the bus is coming or not. And finally, and you're probably saying I'm straying again, but with regarding, it's been mentioned a couple of times, trains, Saltburn Line users a group travelled on the road to Darlington. You go to Eaglescliffe and billions has been poured into there to make London connections. In Redcar, you are still at the whim of the crossing to get from one side of the station to the other, and if you happen to have 2 freight trains going through, you haven't got a cat and hell's chance of doing it. I would appreciate it if somewhere along the line some money could be spent on Redcar station and not just commuter land at Eaglescliffe. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Quartermain.
Okay, yeah, thank you for your questions, Councillor. Yeah, the cemeteries aren't in my portfolio, but I appreciate, you know, as part of a bigger, wider management plan, this is about, in my report, it's about, what they point to is the priorities that are also part of the team, which is about parks, cemeteries, etc. It's about how we measure when we're doing structures and our areas, where the priority is, but it doesn't actually come under my portfolio. In terms of timetables, I already answered this question. Timetables are is a TVCA contract that, you know, we've done new designs so that people can, you know how to complain, and there's all kinds of different things going on there. It's about them getting that information to the bus shelters. It's not a Redcar and Cleveland thing, it's a TVCA thing. It's something that I bring up every time I'm at the Transport Committee. And it's been a year. Okay.
Councillor
And again,
Evans,
railways, etc.
listen to the answer, please.
These are the big capital projects with the TVCA. Again, this is not really in my hands, but you know, I can certainly take your contributions, your representation, if you send them to me. Okay, so if I've got that information, I'll represent you in the TVCA Transport Committee, but I need to see it. You know, what I can't do, everybody, is wait for a full council for you to start telling me all your problems. Email me, you know, and then I can carry them for you. Okay?
Thank you, Councillor Quartermain. I think we probably all require, a comfort break. Could I ask everyone to reassemble here at 4:05? Oh, sorry, my apologies. It's a hang on, Councillor Quartermain, it's a question answer, not a debate. There's no sum up. So the answer is no. There's no summing up. We'll have. I would. It's not a point of order, but I take on board what you've expressed. Sorry, outside the meeting. Okay, everybody, could I ask you to take your seats again, please? Everybody, could you please settle down and restart the meeting? Thank you. We're at item 10, report from Leader of Council, decisions taken under urgent provision.
Yeah, this is just about the electric contract through NEPA was discussed at ANEC. This is just a note, Mr. Mayor.
Can I ask someone to move and second the report? Thank you. And can we move on to item 11? Any questions? Oh, sorry, any questions? No, good. Excellent, thank you. We have two motions this morning. Can I remind everybody? Okay. When we debate the motions. Motion 1. Concentration of barber shops, nail bars and beauty salons in our high streets in Class E. Moved by Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Crane. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just before I read the motion out, what no doubt many of you have already read, just want to give a bit of substance behind it. Basically, I just want to be absolutely clear, this is not an attack on our local hairdressers or beauty businesses. These businesses are a vital part of our community. Many of us rely on them regularly, whether it's just for a haircut, a bit of pampering, a chat, or a monthly treat. Something like me and Alec seem to have always done today. The people running them do an incredible hard job, long hours. Many of them are friends of mine who support the high street for years. I have nothing but respect for the work that they do all year round. The motion is about protecting what we already have and ensuring a better balance in our local economy. It's about returning planning decisions to where they belong, with local authorities in the community, not private landlords. Bit of substance more is when you look at Eston, without taking into the current precinct what's getting demolished next month, that has 18 units, but taking that to one side, there's 47 retail units in Eston alone, okay, and split between takeaways and beauties, it makes up 25, so over half of them are split between beauty places and takeaways. So the motion, this council must note the growing concentration of barbershops, nail bars, beauty salons on our high streets and town centres across Redcar and Cleveland. While these businesses do play a valid role in our local economy, their over-concentration is likely to undermine the very character and therefore long-term viability of our high street environments. A healthy high street depends on a balanced mix of retail, service, food, leisure and community spaces. This pattern of clustering has been driven by national planning reforms introduced by government in September 2020, which created the use of E-Class to merge with a wide range of commercial uses, i.e. shops, cafes, offices, saloons, into one category. As a result, premises can now change between these uses without the need for planning permission, removing any local authority oversight or community input. While this reform was a sensible growth measure during the COVID pandemic to support economical survival and adaptability, it is now clear that its continued application is causing long-term challenges for our local high streets and stripping away council's planning vital tools. The motion is not about restricting businesses' opportunities, it's about restoring balance, protecting local identity, and giving councils and the community a voice in their high streets to evolve. It's about promoting a vision for our high streets in economical, diverse, sociable, vibrant, and shape the needs for aspirations of our own residents. So what I'm asking for today is to write to government to ask the consideration to be given and remove barbershops, nail bars and beauty salons from the use of E-Class legislations, therefore restoring local authority powers to manage the balance of these businesses. Request that the leader of the council write to our local MPs and attorney and Luke Meyer requesting that they raise the matter with the Department of Levelling Up and the housing communities and identifying opportunities what might work with local authorities, regional partners to build a case for national change based on real impact felt across our own town centres. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Just somebody seconds and...
Oh, second it.
The motion and reserve the right to speak.
Okay. Right, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. you've been pleased to hear I'm happy to write to the MPs, and the Labour Group will support your motion, but with a caveat. This is very unconservative in terms of conservative groups and parliamentary parties of old have always advocated for free markets. So it was a surprise to see this motion. However, we will support the merit of it and happily support it. But is this an example of slowly, capitulating to reform policy and not standing with your traditional free market routes? Are we seeing the conservative, moderate sensibility of years being lost in an attempt to pander to reform unspoken coalition that we all know is going on across the authority? But yeah, we will support your motion, Councillor.
Councillor Salvin.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a few notes that I took today. I wasn't expecting to be first to speak after Councillor Brown. Sorry, I'm just a bit. So yeah, today BBC News at 1 o'clock, and I'd suggest that if any of you have got a chance to watch that, or it'll probably be on at 6 o'clock news as well. There was a special report on criminal gangs on our high streets, basically infiltrating them, and I suggest that everyone watches it. Some direct quotes from that report included that. Sorry, I'm covered in water. My bottles. Yeah, I just realised. Sorry about that. So some direct quotes from the report include that people are frightened of the high street criminality, with people witnessing 3,500 shop fronts exposed for selling illegal cigarettes and vapes, but only 300 temporarily closed. And by temporarily closed is they get the initial order from trading standards, and then they're allowed to reopen. We've had a case in Eston as well. Law enforcement connecting organised crime, drug dealing and immigration, with many too afraid to speak up about it. Basically, how do all these empty barbershops make their money? If I had a business with so little footfall, I wouldn't be open. One example is a sweet shop locally, which is being done by trading standards, open till 11 o'clock at night. Now, what kind of sweet shop needs to open till 11 o'clock at night? And why is it not open at 8 o'clock for the school run in the morning? Is it really a sweet shop? And then some direct quotes at the end of the report from ministers in government. The immigration minister said it's a national scandal. Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, said it's a disgrace and would look at the law if necessary. And the Business Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, only today has stated that this is has a major debilitating effect on our high streets, and there needed to be more action. And finally, the councils in this report were saying that laws do need to change so that they can affect this. So whilst I know you're trying to put a bit of reform spin on that, Alec, actually from your own government are saying the same things. I think this is a cross-party issue. I think it's a countrywide issue. And Jan, I hope that members in this room can support this motion today to try and take back some control of the high streets. We all know that the COVID pandemic caused massive issues, and I can understand the government at the time relaxing the legislation, but maybe it should have come with a temporary relaxation to take control again in a few years. I think the consequences at the time were probably unknown, and we're all starting to see the consequences 5 years down the line. And yeah, this motion is about taking back some control, so we have some control of our high streets. And I'll be supporting this motion.
Councillor Clark.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Yep, I fully support this motion. The abuse of this category is for all to see in our towns and villages. I've reported to our planning department the number of complaints I've received from residents about certain types of shops in the town and how they regularly disregard rules and regulations for conservation areas. Westgate, the main street in Gisborough, there's an abuse there by these people. They don't need any planning legislation. They can just go ahead and they can move their shops in. And they are being investigated, I can assure you, by our enforcement to make sure that we're going to stop this as soon as we can, certainly in Gisborough. You mentioned the BBC, and I'm pleased you mentioned that. because there was an article by the BBC News from a reporter called Ed Thomas, and he's been investigating in Rochdale the proliferation of such types of shops which may or may not belong to organised crime gangs. And I don't want Gisborne to be a part of that. So what I've done, I've reported the enforcement part to the council about this category E. I've also reported it to the police and said, look, have you noticed the proliferation of certain shops in our town? And I would be obliged if you could pass it on to the National Crime Agency, because they should be taking note of this. A particular shop or business in Gisborne was caught and fined £80,000 a year ago, 2 years ago, I can't remember now, and yet they're still in business. A local shop, if that had been fined £80,000, they would have gone bust. So you've got to ask yourself, why is this place still in business? How have they managed to do it? I'm not stupid, so let's get a grip of this. This is a start, I'm sure, that we could do. And let's just see, and let's get people involved, the enforcement from the council, let's get the police involved, because if you don't, it's only going to get worse. So thank you for bringing this, and I fully support the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Whilst I recognise the intent and the merits of the motion, perhaps having passed, we should be forgiven if we're disappointed or not disappointed by the delay that it may take to be agreed at national level and then subsequently implemented. So we should not be forgetting that we are currently rewriting our local plan. So our local plan equally has been delayed, regrettably, with all the implications of that. But there is an opportunity to put in the local plan provision for how we wish our communities to be structured and managed. We already have a takeaway policy in terms of numbers in town centres, so there's no reason why that cannot be revisited and restructured. So whilst giving my support to the motion, I would ask that you consider in parallel to that putting your contributions to those who are currently writing the draft local plan.
Thank you. Councillor Grogan.
Yeah, just to give a little bit of context, actually, I remembered something from the news back in May that's regarding this motion. There's a Welsh town with fewer than 6,000 residents that has 14 hair salons in it. It works out, that's according to the census, 426 people per barber. Obviously, I don't go to them very often, but that just shows like the saturation point that our high streets are actually getting to. This is where I'm glad that we're going to try and take it back amongst ourselves in planning, because this said here, despite 34 separate letters of objections, I'm not going to pronounce the Welsh town. Planning committee approved the application for the new barbershop because there was no caveat brought in place. So that is one of the reasons, to give a bit of context, that I'm backing Councillor Taylor's motion.
Councillor Davies.
That was quick, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I support the context of the motion, Mr. Mayor, but agree with Councillor Clark that it probably doesn't go further enough. I agree there's probably far too much criminality involved in some types of these businesses, and maybe it should be going further to like say the National Crime Agency, making sure the police are involved, because it's unfair on the businesses that we know about that have been on our high streets for a long time, that are potentially going up against businesses that potentially are doing some form of criminality in their business as well. So I support it, but believe that we should be doing more, and I've got no faith in the planning, as I've said many times before. Planning enforcement, planning, anything to do with planning, it all comes from national government, and unless national government are going to change their policy, there's not really a lot we're going to do locally, unfortunately. Thank you.
If there's no more requests to speak, Councillor Crane, do you wish to speak? Okay. Councillor Taylor, would you like to sum up?
Councillor Brown, thank you for supporting this along with your group. As you probably know now, I'm not one for playing too much into politics. What I tend to do is listen to my residents, listen to the community, and act on what they see fit. And with the growing numbers of private landlords being able to move between different businesses and rent them out, which we can't fault because they want the income at the end of the day, a lot of residents believe that a lot of these buildings are owned by the council and it's the council making these decisions. So with a new development at Eston, that's opening summer 2026, the council will be in charge of this development, which is one of the reasons why we need to bring it back to the local authority, so we're in charge of some of what we offer out there as well. But having over half the shops just to two sort of businesses isn't good for the high street. But I thank you for bringing that up. Councillor Clark, very important. Thank you for what you've brought up, especially about the signs and the legality around it, and along with Councillor Salvin. Councillor Thompson, I get what you're saying about being local. I looked into actually doing it locally, but unfortunately, I believe that if we were to do it locally, there'd have to be a big audit from the council, and all landlords who are affected by the change in policy would have to be in agreement. And naturally, a landlord wouldn't want to be in agreement, which is why we need to change it nationally as well, because it just doesn't affect here. It affects the whole of the UK, I believe. Councillor Davies, thank you as well for your support. It's much appreciated. Me personally, I take on board what you say. If we were taking it a step further, I personally believe in, something like a DBS type system for the people who work in what they call the personal care sector. So whether you're working in a hairdressers, a nail bar, barbers, a bit like when you do your security course, you have a DBS, you get a license, you put it on the arm. I believe that that should be a factor in every premises for every person who works there. It cut down on a lot of issues that are facing, especially in the criminal world as well. Thank you for your time.
Right, can I have a vote on the proposed motion, please? Those in favour? That's carried. We move on to motion 2, proposed by Councillor Karen King and seconded by Councillor Kerry Corley. Councillor Corley, do you reserve the right to speak? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm bringing this motion today because I believe we all share in the responsibility to protect every child, not just those in our care or living in Redcar and Cleveland, but all children. We rightly expect high safeguarding standards in schools and care homes, but what happens when a child leaves school at 4 o'clock and goes to a dance school, a dance class, a football session or a tutoring group? In far too many cases the answer is nothing. No DBS check required, no safeguarding lead, no formal oversight, and no national standards to protect that child if something goes wrong. This motion calls on our council to back the national safeguarding framework for extracurricular activities. I have read it, and if anyone's got a week and wants to have a go through, it's quite a weighty document, but it needs to be. This motion calls on our council to back this. It's to make enhanced DBS checks, proper training and safeguarding leadership mandatory across all activities involving children and vulnerable adults. I want to thank the British Dance Sports Association for the incredible work they've already done to develop this framework. They've done the hard part, gathered the data, written the policy and given us a clear, realistic solution. I'm extremely grateful in their support in helping me bring this motion forward. I've had several meetings with them this week. This isn't theoretical, and we've seen many examples and consequences of these gaps. Alexander Eastwood, aged 15, died in an unsanctioned kickboxing match. Hundreds of survivors of football, gymnastics and other grassroots sports have come forward with horrific stories of abuse, bullying, coercion, all because we have a system that didn't extend to their clubs. There's some examples that I really don't feel like I could even share in here that was so awful when I was doing my research on this, as to people that have infiltrated gymnastic clubs. A few examples, and I'm not going to go into massive detail. Rosanna Awan, a 34-year-old cheerleading coach, was convicted for sexually abusing a 13-year-old during competitions and hotel stays. She was sentenced to 10 years. Barry Bennell, a coach at Crewe and Manchester City, serious offences stretching 20 years. George Ormond from Newcastle, in 12 indecent assaults on boys aged 9 to 18. Robert Smith, William Turner, Michael Coleman, Norman Shaw, Dylan Lamb, Jim McCafferty, Frank Kearney, Bob Higgins, Jeff Broom. Google them. They've all been involved in these sports and all got away with abusing children under the radar. So many children have suffered trauma at the hands of predators who infiltrate groups knowing that they may not even be asked to have a DBS or background check. There are even cases where DBS checks have come back clean, only to find that the perpetrator had convictions in Europe for abuse. So we need to be thorough and also check in other countries where people have resided. Children who experience trauma may not even report it or know they're being groomed or abused until later in life. But the impact is lifelong and often results in behaviour or coping mechanisms which will require lifelong support. Just the names I've mentioned today have been responsible for ruining the lives of dozens, if not hundreds, of children. And although we'll probably never stop abuse, we must try to prevent it by any means necessary. Traumatised children become traumatised adults. How many end up in care, the justice system, counselling, drug or alcohol services, special education provision, or even take their own lives? Safeguarding can't be left to chance or to a postcode, or to whether a parent happens to ask the right questions. This framework is about giving good providers support whilst ensuring unsafe ones can't slip through the cracks. It's not political. Children from all walks of life go to the same clubs. They have the same hopes. Let us agree on this together as a united council and send a clear message that will do everything in our power to protect them. I'm grateful to Councillor Kerry Corley for seconding this motion, and I hope every member will support it. And I've done quite a big preamble, so I'll take the motion as read. That's okay. Thank you.
Councillor Corley.
I second the motion, Mr Mayor, and reserve the right to speak.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll speak as a parent, not as a Labour councillor. Anything that happens against a child like that, for me, is abhorrent. It's the worst offence to me that is out there, and the Labour Group absolutely supports the merits of your motion. It's quite frightening, actually, the list you ran out there. I would imagine just a very small proportion. I will, though, go on record and say our grassroots sports teams locally, my experience, I've been one of the worst coaches ever that Redcar FC had for 2 seasons. I absolutely had to have a DBS, and there was safeguarding in place. So I do know that's already been taking place, just to go on record for my experience of our local teams, but more than happy to support your motion.
Councillor Ovens.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Hard work she's put into this. This is a lengthy, detailed motion and of vital importance. I consider myself lucky to have participated in sport in a time when this just seemed to be unheard of. I never certainly witnessed it, but you do hear of things happening, and children are traumatised into much later life and only start to reveal much later into life, but it has affected their lives for a significant period of time. So I wholeheartedly support this in wherever any type of sport takes place. Then it needs to be done by someone who is regulated. Thank you very much, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Robson.
Hi, I totally support this. I think I've said this often in different meetings. I think safeguarding our young people and adults is one of the most important duties we have as a local authority. Thank you for bringing this. I obviously know more about the adult side just from the work I'm in, but also in my cabinet role. I was obviously quite naive about what was happening within these sort of organisations. I've been lucky enough, my daughter was a gymnast. She went to gymnastics since 5, and luckily that particular club they had a safeguarding lead, and yeah, there was very good procedures in place. She since went on to do coaching, and as part of that coaching at a different club, again she was asked to do safeguarding training as part of that. So I naively thought that those sort of safeguards and those regulations were across clubs. Obviously that regulation isn't there, that consistency isn't there, so I've been, you know, eyes open by this and absolutely welcome and will support this. So thank you for bringing it.
Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can only echo what has been said already, really. Thank you, Councillor King and Councillor Corley, for bringing the motion. We are all corporate parents, and our children need to feel safe and be safe at all times. And there is nothing to argue with in this motion at all. Thank you.
Councillor Corley, would you like to speak?
I suppose you've all said everything and covered everything, but as a parent of 3 dancers, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't protect them, one as a parent, but then you look at the wider, and it's about making safeguarding everybody's business, not just us today sat in this chamber. It's about the coach. It's about the future coaches. It's a bigger picture than us as politicians sat here making this motion. It's about the future that we need to look into, and it's about making that foundation now in order to build and protect. And I think Karen's done amazing, Councillor King, with this motion, and I'm very happy to support it.
Thank you, everybody. Could we have a vote on this motion, please? Oh, sorry. My apologies, Karen.
Quick summary. Obviously, the first thing that comes to mind with everybody is sexual abuse, but there's bullying between children. There's examples of anorexia, where gymnasts and dancers have been told that they're overweight when they're not. They're perfectly healthy and they're doing it for fun. So it's having a safeguarding lead is like you say, it's going to make everybody responsible. There's a safeguarding lead, but other people will be trained to spot signs of children becoming withdrawn or other things happen. So I want to thank everybody for the thoughtful and respectful debate. What we've heard today confirms what we already know. This current system doesn't go far enough, and we need to push for change. It's not about criticising providers. We know there's some brilliant clubs. Many already do the right thing voluntarily, but that's the point. It shouldn't be voluntarily. A child's safety should never depend on whether the right adult happens to be in the room. We've all heard the stories I've told today. There's countless more near misses, quiet harms, and children suffering in silence because nobody was trained, nobody was checked, and nobody was listening. As Carolyn said, we're all corporate parents, and it's our responsibility not only to look after children as they looked after children as if they were our own, but to all children in our borough. And I'd like to thank, I think everyone will here will agree, all children, no matter where they live. This is our chance to lead by example, and I want to thank the British Dance Sport Association for putting the hard work in, for writing the framework, gathering the evidence, and giving us something real to get behind. Thank you. I think I've got mostly everyone's support. Let's make Redcar and Cleveland the first council in the country to stand up and say every child matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have a vote on the motion, please? Everyone in favour? Carried. I think is there someone who could switch that on? while we're waiting for it to be switched on, could we then move on to our next item, item 12, the appointment of members? Can we take it as read that everyone is happy with the changes taking place? Okay, thank you. We're on to item 13, questions from members and from council. We have 7 questions, and I'm noticing the time. So can everybody please, as I asked in the beginning, stick to the question and answer, and if possible, keep them as short as possible. A reminder that questions get 2 minutes to ask a question, and the responding member gets 5 minutes to reply. Additionally, questioner gets 1 minute to ask a supplementary question, and responding member gets 2 minutes to reply. Question 1 from Councillor Martin to Councillor Quartermain.
This year there was 2 EV charging points placed behind Virgin Bank in Essen Square. This is taking up valuable parking spaces. Can you tell me what it would cost for the installation and the usage figures so far?
Councillor?
And was willing to answer it. So the cost of the installation was 71,000 and the usage has been 69 charges since February. Given the information's come back from TVCA, I assume they were some of our grant funded charges because it isn't our information. But he just wanted to point out that the infrastructure and investment needs to be ahead of the curve. So initial usage will always be modest until EV ownership goes up. There's been extensive funding to support the infrastructure rollout, which TVCA and the council have accessed. Wait until there's a large demand and then trying to install them would have meant missing out on this funding in question. All right.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. About to ask Councillor. Councillor Martin, do you have a supplementary?
Yeah. Obviously, we all agree that obviously these charging points are required for the future. But would it not be a good idea to obviously inform ward councillors of the potential locations of these? And with the redevelopment of Eston Precinct, wouldn't you thought it would be better to put it in a better location than to hid behind a derelict building?
Councillor Richardson, you're answering.
Yeah, I'll have to get back to you on why that location was selected, but I don't see why prospective locations couldn't be shared with all ward councillors.
Thank you. Can we move on to question 2? Question from Councillor Grogan to Councillor Brooke. I noticed that Councillor Brooke's not here. Can I ask who's going to respond? Councillor Brown, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I can imagine you're going to echo some of my sentiments on this with it being our ward as well. So in full council last June, I asked about No More Main. Part of that question was the vegetation and on the paths and curbs within our ward. The reasons were given were budget cuts last year, the weather, and it was awful with the rain, and it would take around about go back onto a 3-week routine. So what's gone wrong this year? We've had a really dry spring, really dry summer, and it just seems worse than ever. Now, I have contacted regarding Langthwaite Walk, and it has since been cleaned, so that's been done. But other residents on social media have got from Kirkleatham, Cotham, Zetland, Eston, and obviously in the portfolio holders Grangetown ward as well. We've also been in touch. There's so many weeds and vegetation on our paths and our roads. Why?
Councillor Brown.
We can confirm the grass cutting does have a 3-weekly routine, route, which this year has been achieved across all areas. However, weed control is managed completely differently, and they've said that in bold. Which includes spraying over the full route in early spring and follow-up route in July, depending on weather. Areas that were treated early in the season are now being retreated. We spray and leave whilst the weeds die off, and return with sweeper and extract any debris where recesses allow. As an example, we have been able to return to areas in the last 3 weeks due to grass cutting has slowed due to the prolonged dry conditions. During hot weather, weeds effectively shut down, which means they are less likely to absorb the pesticide that this is the natural response. However, it does impact on effectiveness. We are currently ensuring all wards are treated on a regular basis with the resources available to us. So in short, the weeds act as a bit of not absorbing the pesticide, and it doesn't kill them as effectively if it does as if they were absorbing.
Councillor Grogan, do you have a supplementary?
No, I'm not sure if Councillor Brown can answer it. It's just a question, obviously, you might have to get replied back as an email. Are they still using glyphosate on the treatment of weeds on the road? Because I know that they are sort of phasing it out and there was some left over. Because obviously there's potential for claims. We've got our own Councillor Martin here that's laid up as well, because he come across on it as well. So we'd like to know if it's still glyphosate getting used or not, and if we can increase it, because usually dry weather is best time to do it. And I'm not green fingered, it's just I've read on the bottle.
We are in some places, but be mindful this council did pass a motion. I think it was supported by everyone in the council about not using it altogether. So the bits where we are using it is of vital importance in terms of the big response and how much it's being used. I don't have oversight on that. Adam does, so I'll get him and respond to you. Okay. But again, it's the weather. I mean, like, it's really hot and then it pees down for a couple of days and then it's really hot again. So.
Thank you. Move on to question 3. Everybody, can we move on to questions? I'm noting the time. I don't think everyone wants to be here for too long. Question 3 from Councillor Kerr to Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The decision-making process for the incinerator, a timeline. I won't go through it all. I want to start in June and the paper to the South Tees Development Corporation Board, where we heard that the bidder selection was now due in Q3. The council's view at that same meeting was the end date was the last day of June. 2 weeks later, in this room at the council meeting, we heard from the leader that the drop-dead date for the decision was the end of July. Now, the next day, the very next day, when Councillor Salvin and I met with Durham County Council, their understanding was the deadline was the 3rd of July. So when I queried this discrepancy, I was told the leader had got his dates mixed up. Now, the council meeting, 13th of May, the special council meeting, the motion that was carried, the recommendation that the final decision rests with Cabinet, and an urgent Cabinet meeting was subsequently arranged, and of course that was cancelled and not rearranged. At the July Cabinet meeting, just recently, the incinerator was not on the agenda and it was not mentioned. And today's meeting, it's not on the agenda. Now, bearing in mind the next Cabinet meeting is the 23rd of September and the next council meeting is October. So considering all of the confusion, the missed deadlines and the different information from different sources, the urgent Cabinet meeting that turned out to be not so urgent, is the leader finally able to inform council if a decision has been made or is pending by Cabinet or otherwise about whether Redcar and Cleveland will continue to be part of the TV ERF consortium? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I really would have liked to have been invited to that Durham County Council meeting. It would. Oh, was it? Is that Reform Tory coalition I mentioned earlier on? By any chance? Yeah, the blushing says it and answers the question. Reform coalition. But anyway, the short answer is no. And I will tell you why there was some confusion in June. Because the project that was really quite supported by the Tees Valley Mayor back at its conception, as he was in the local press saying, asked the project board to defer whilst they'd seen if it put which you've seen in the press, so I'm not breaking any confidence, the data centre, whether it impacted that, and so they made representation to the project board to ask them to delay and defer any decisions for a couple of weeks. Now, based on the Cabinet and this council, the short answer is no, we haven't made any decisions till I'm absolutely clear, and the Cabinet are absolutely clear about who's in, who's out and what the legal implications and cost, because if you read the constitution of the board, which I'm sure you have in great detail, it will say that the first council to pull out is then liable for all the claim costs from all the other 6 councils, which I'm sure the councillor wouldn't support, because we'd be talking multiple billions of pounds. So on the back of that, my cabinet have sought independent legal advice for us to get the absolute black and white what are the implications of Redcar staying in and staying out. But again, just to clarify and double down that it's always been the case with our 9% stake. It goes ahead with or without Redcar. We don't have the vote. You can shake your head, but the Tees Valley Bear was in a meeting where that was confirmed. We've got a 9% stake. If a Durham was to pull out with a 24% stake, then that potentially would make it fall over. But the message we had from Durham only a week and a half ago, or 2 weeks ago, which I shared with the full council, was at that point they were still in. And the drop-dead date by the end of July was to appoint Viridor, not to go into contract, but they were the only tenderer. So the actual fallout down date is probably, I think, the end of this year. But the answer to your question is no, we haven't made a decision yet.
Councillor Kerr, do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, thank you for your answer. And it looks like the timescale has been extended then until the end of the year? No, still not? So do you then still intend to take a report to Cabinet for a decision to be made? And do you have a timescale for that? And will that decision be made, be ratified by full council, which I know you have expressed? Yep.
Of Cabinet would be as if we decided to pull out, because the financial implications of that decision are so massive on the authority that it would need to come back to full council. But again, I can't give you a time frame here because I still haven't been given the black and white implications and actual costs of us pulling out. It would be foolhardy for me to do that, and the neglect of my duty as leader of this council to ensure that all the residents are protected, whether we stay in or pull out. So until I have that independent advice, and now that I know that there's cross-party politics at play, which you've openly admitted in the chamber, I'm going to have to clarify exactly what is going on politically as well. Thank you.
No.
Question 4.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Over 13 months ago, South Park Rangers Football Club were offered new fencing to help protect their pitches at Smithstock Park from persistent problems with off-road bikes, and it was a welcome gesture of support from the council for a fantastic community football club with about 20 teams. You know, it's a really fantastic community club, and exactly the sort of assistance that the council should be aiming to provide our sports teams. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Councillor Pallister and Councillor Brooke in Grangetown, because actually they allowed this to happen. The fencing was intended to go to Grangetown. Would like to thank Councillor Peter Cheney, who it's always a pleasure to work with and has been on this project, and of course officers Louise Anderson, Chloe Lewis and Samantha Simpson. The reason I bring it to full council today is the club were told they were receiving this fencing over 13 months ago, and for them it's just been a slog waiting for this fencing, you know, and they're getting harassed time and time again by off-road bikes, which this fencing would hopefully stop. And I just can't understand how a reprofiling bid for a fence takes 13 months, and I was just hoping that the cabinet member could look into that with officers, and I'd just like to hear why it's taking so long. It's a brilliant thing. Really appreciate your support, Councillor Pallister, and everything, but the football club are really frustrated, and I'd be letting them down if I wasn't looking as to why it's taken so long. Thank you.
Councillor Pallister.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think everyone probably knows how much that I'm a great believer in grassroots sports, which is why I found 500,000, which has helped 18 grassroots sport clubs, from rugby to football to boxing to netball, gymnastics, and it's also brought in another 2.2 million to put play zones, 6 play zones across the borough in additional funding. So I'm a great believer, because you cannot beat kids getting involved in sport, wherever that sport is. Better educational opportunities, they do better, they get better jobs, their mental and physical health's better, there's so many, less antisocial behaviour, less likely to go into the criminal justice. It's a no-brainer to support grassroots sports. So I'm frustrated as well that it's taken so long to actually put a fence up for the football club. I was saddened, obviously, that Kingsley Road couldn't have that opportunity, but I'm pleased that it's gone to yourselves, South Park Rangers. So I've got a timeline, because I think it's worth trying to go through, because you do think 16 months, what the hell is going on? We're probably going to build the baths quicker than putting this fence up, to be fair. So the timeline, 3rd of the 6th, 24, Redcar and Cleveland Borough Council informed Tees Valley Combined Authority that Kingsley Road field project had been abandoned due to antisocial behaviour, and requested permission to move the funding to an alternative project location in the TS6 area. That was the 3rd of the 6th. 13th of the 6th, reply received from Tees Valley Combined Authority saying they would talk to their finance and government teams and reply back. 20th of the 8th, so you're going 2 months by then, RCB chased again because there was no response. 27th of the 9th, RCBC completed and submitted PCR to Tees Valley Combined Authority due to delays in summer holidays and project manager being on sick leave. 15th of the 10th, RCBC chased. As no response, Tees Valley Combined Authority responded to advise that it was now in an appraisal system. 8th of the 11th, RCBC chased as no response. 21st of the 11th, 24, Noble's contractor update the cost, etc., but RCBC still had no authority to instruct the work from Tees Valley Combined Authority. 12th of the 12th, Tees Valley Combined Authority confirmed this has now gone back to the appraisal team. 16th of the 1st, RCBC chased as no response. 17th of the 1st, Tees Valley Combined Authority told us we would receive a response by the 18th of the 1st, 25. That was the 17th. 22nd of the 1st, RCBC chased as no response. Sadly, the lady dealing with it had lost a parent and was on bereavement leave. 18th of the 2nd, RCBC chased as no response. 27th of the 2nd, teams meeting with Nobles to approve work and request site visit. 18th of the 2nd, Tees Valley then approved the project change request. And on the 27th of the 2nd, there was a site visit with Nobles. 11th of the 4th, RCBC met Nobles. 17th of the 4th, Nobles site visit with Graham from South Park Rangers. 25th of the 4th, new quote received from Nobles to carry out the work at Smith Docks Park. 7th of the 5th, RCBC just queried some discrepancies because the quote had increased in price, which was previously worked out from the Kingsley Road field. RCBC chased Nobles from the 13th of the 5th to the 2nd of the 6th. Got no response, and on the 4th of the 6th, Nobles responded to say they will come back to us soon. 30th of the 6th, delayed due to holidays, quote shared with RCBC Finance, and we queried with Nobles. Reached agreement on price on the 30th of June, and on the price for Nobles, and then a date was set for September. However, you're not going to be happy because the September's gone to October, so the earliest date possible that the fence is now going to be installed is October. I'm really sorry that that's the best we can do, but you can see that by this timeline it's gone back forward to different people. Thank you.
Councillor Pugh, do you have a supplementary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Pallister, for the timeline of events. I guess my supplementary question is, please can you send me that, and we'll have to see what we want to do going forward. It's obviously disappointing to hear the work's been delayed. I understand it's not actually the council's fault. You know, we contacted the mayor and everything over a fence. You know, it's I don't know what to say, but thank you very much for your support and for the officers, and if you could send me the timeline, that would be brilliant. Thank you.
Can you be brief in your response, please? Councillor Pallister.
I'm not sure I need it. We need a response for that, but yeah, I've given you the date. I can't move it any quicker. I was hoping to come back and say you could have it up in 2 weeks, but it's not the case because of school holidays. Nobles are doing a lot of fences. What I would say, there looks like there's a business there if it takes that long, and we have to wait that long for a fence.
Thank you, Councillor Pallister. I note we've still got 3 questions to answer. I also note the time. Does anyone wish to bring a motion to extend the time period? You were second. Right. What time? He's happy with the proposal. Is everyone happy with the proposal? Right. Thank you. 5. Councillor Pugh to Councillor Brown.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll just start by saying actually thank you, Councillor Brown, because you recently helped me with regards to this piece of land, and I really appreciate that, with it being used as a compound. The question is, and the context is, in 2016 the council published a green wedge and strategic gap review, a review of the land between Mask and Redcar, and strategic gaps of that sort, and one of the strategic gaps outlined was the Spencer Beck Valley. It's outlined between Nornby High Farm and sort of Spencer Beck Field, down that strip to Western Hills. And it said in the review the green wedge has a recreational value to the local community and provides an attractive setting to the residential area. It's important in maintaining the distinct character between Normanby and Ormsby, and it is really important to residents. Someone out of coincidence rang me and actually rang the Ormsby councillors and rang Councillor McInnes and Councillor Salvin this morning because they'd heard that the field or part of the field was potentially for sale, and they were really concerned because they'd moved there just because of Spencer Beck Field and the fact that they like living so close to nature essentially. So the 42-metre area mentioned in the report between Ainstable Road and Spencer Beck Farm, the council is looking at selling that piece of land. They've said it's an excellent development opportunity. So my question is, do you know why the council's abandoned the findings of the 2016 review, where we said it was really important and protected, and seemingly, to my knowledge, without public consultation?
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Councillor Pugh, for your question and your kind words. It's a perfect example of cross-party working to get things done. I know you do it with Councillor Cheney quite often, and I commend you both for that. That's something I'll always endorse, working together, rather than having closed doors meetings with other councils. Right, okay, the site on which the council are currently inviting informal tender measures approximately 2.35 acres and forms part of a much larger measuring approximately 30.33 acres. The subject site adjoins Spencerbeck Farm, on which a residential developer has granted planning permission to build new homes. The site has been brought forward to open market only after the council received 2 unsolicited approaches from third parties expressing potential interest in acquiring land in that location. At the same time, part of the council's intention to produce the new local plan, as directed by central government, necessitated the Strategic Planning Department to issue a call for sites for local landowners for consideration and assessment of possible changes in land use across the borough. One of the principal drivers behind the exercise is to identify sites for potential residential development as part of the government's ambitious house building target of 3.5 million new homes in the UK over the life of the current Parliament. Driven by these factors, the Council has followed its usual practice for testing the market openly and transparently by inviting formal tendered bids for the identified 2.35 acre site by a deadline of 12 noon on Friday the 27th of August. In this instance, external agents are instructed, following the Council's best practice applied in every case. The particulars clearly state that the Council are not bound to accept the highest or indeed any bid submitted by this means. Neither party is bound by any informal bids tendered. The process is instrumental in demonstrating that the local council is adhering to its statutory obligations under the S123 of the Local Government Act of 1972 to achieve best value on disposable of surplus public land and property assets. It must be emphasised that any proposed development will be subject to securing planning permission. Any planning application would be assessed on its own merits and determined by a planning process, which would provide opportunity for public consultation and representation. And yeah, planning's not my forte, Councillor Pugh, so you know I am guided with officers on planning law on this one, buddy.
Councillor Pugh, do you have a supplementary? Councillor Thompson to Councillor Pallister.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my question is, what was the result of the call for sites appeal in respect of potential housing developments, together with respective housing numbers, and when will members be provided with the detailed responses?
Councillor Pallister.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson, for your question. 46 sites were submitted to the Council's call for site that closed on the 2nd of June. The call for site sought submissions for potential development sites that could then be assessed as part of reviewing the Housing and Economic Land Availability Assessment, the HELA, and that was last refreshed in 2020. Planning strategy team is now carrying out desktop assessments and site visits of the submitted sites and other potential development sites, including 105 sites that were within the previous HELA. The site appraisal process will also require the involvement of other council officers to consider arrangements in terms of highway network capacity, surface water drainage issues, contaminated land and other potential constraints to development. Due to the number of sites and the complexity of the issues considered, the site assessment process can take a number of months. But when all appraisals are completed, we can bring the findings back to members. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson, do you have a supplementary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Given the apparent complexity of the situation that we find ourselves in, could I ask that we have an update at the Housing Forum, which is scheduled for the 8th of September, which may concentrate the mind in putting together the response into some format that members can be understanding of? And could I also ask, Mr. Mayor, that at the same forum we have an update on what the local authority is proposing in terms of its housing development potential for brownfield sites?
Councillor Pallister.
Yeah, I think actually, Councillor Thompson, you've read my supplementary because obviously you will appreciate that the work going on is complex and it's detailed, so I couldn't give you a response yet till officers have done all that appraisal. But I think the place to have that discussion, I have asked on the agenda, we'll have a timetable regarding the work programme for reviewing both the council's housing strategy, the new local plan, and also further updates that we may have findings on the call for sites at that meeting.
Final question for today, Councillor Nightingale to Councillor Brown.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. There's presumption in this question that that the leader of the council actually went to the LGA conference, so it's carefully worded as can rather than will. Can you report back on the recent visit to the LGA conference, please?
Councillor Brown.
That's a very broad question. In the 10 years I've sat in this chamber, I've never heard anybody ask for a report on the LGA conference. I'm just wondering, is there anything in particular you want to know? Councillor Davies is a very good dancer. I can't answer the Labour group stuff, but I will say that we had the opportunity, me and the Deputy, to speak to some exciting inward investment opportunities. We had discussions around animal welfare. We had discussions around housing. We had discussions massively around AI. I had separate meetings with Denise. I didn't have any meetings with reform. No, I didn't. Oh, Send reform. Yeah, sorry. Send reform. Well, it's not a joke, is it? It's far from a joke. UK Reef, which are massive private investors into the area. I didn't speak. Well, so again, is there anything particular you want to know, Councillor Nightingale? My hotel was very nice as well.
Councillor Nightingale, do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, that's very good news. We all got a copy of this first, didn't we? And it says councils are catalysts for of progress and innovation. Perhaps we've got to innovate and turn these lights off. I've mentioned this before. That there's about 60 on at the moment, and there's loads outside as well. But do you agree, Leader of the Council, that with this comment that the councils are a catalyst, blah, 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 or would you agree with me that it would need radical change? And can you tell, it was all very good news, but can you tell us whether you've actually been involved with networking with North Eastern council leaders to get the government to produce the radical change in local government funding so that this council can really get on with the job, providing effective and clear and rational services for the people of this borough?
Councillor Brown?
The answer is yes. All the North East leaders of all parties have lobbied the government for a better settlement, hence the refresh of the funding formula. I do know that the whole budget tax formula or equation is all being revaluated in coming months. Just the the refresh of the funding formula, which was lobbied by North East leaders, will probably result in us getting around £3 to £4 million next year. Of course, it has to be phased over a number of years, largely because it would be unfair just to then take £10 million all in one hit from a leafy conservative rural constituency. It is all about fairness and so the answer is yes. Yes, we are, and we have, and we are networking, and then conversations did take place at the LGA.
Thank you, everybody. I'll call the meeting to an end, and thank everyone for their patience tonight.